Chapter 4586. Tang Tailin and his mother did not pay attention to Yang Yuxuan's situation, nor did they know that she had entered the Xie family's social circle with Yu Yu's help. Even if she was not as powerful as the Wen family, with her own strength and connections, even the Wen family would not dare to touch her easily. In fact, if Tangwa could do something, it was only a matter of time before she surpassed the Wen family. Tangwa did not do so because it was not necessary. Now, Yang Yuxuan was doing very well with her own efforts. Unless Yang Yuxuan encountered some difficulties and asked her to solve them. As for her younger sister, Yang Ji, Tangwa had been teaching this little girl since she was young. She planned to cultivate her into a talent. Of course, the most important thing was to develop Yang Ji's business ability. With her efforts, Yang Yuxuan finally paid attention to Yang Ji and felt that her younger daughter was not ordinary. As expected, after the test, Yang Yuxuan was very complicated. Although Yang Yuxuan liked her younger daughter very much, in her heart, she was slightly biased towards Tangwa. Tangwa treated her differently. Her original plan was that her daughter, Guogua, was smart and would definitely inherit her business in the future. Later, she found that her younger daughter was outstanding in this area, but Guogua did not seem to be interested in it. She signed up for one interest class after another, but none of them were about business. Later, she found that Tangwa was not interested in business, so she let it be. Yang Ji liked her elder sister, Tangwa, the most. In her heart, her elder sister was omnipotent. At a young age, Yang Ji did not know the evil in people's hearts and listened to everything Tangwa said. As a result, she had to face all kinds of training from Yang Yuxuan at a young age. However, every time she did this, she would be praised by Tangwa, so Yang Ji was satisfied. It was tiring, but her elder sister praised her again today. She read for a long time. For example, today, Yang Ji, who was still in primary school, looked at the task assigned by Yang Yuxuan after she finished her homework. Because Yang Yuxuan found Yang Ji's talent, she did not want to waste it, so she did this to test her. When she found that Yang Ji was not disgusted and was even interested, she focused on training and hired a professional teacher. Yang Ji did not know how sinister Darren's heart was. Yang Yuxuan was now living in a villa. Although her relationship with the Yang family wasn't as good as before, she still kept in touch with them and didn't reject the Yang family's concern. Yang family's parents also watched Yang Yuxuan get up step by step, only then did they realize that they were very wrong. In their traditional thinking, they still believed that women needed a good man to take care of them. Now they realized that it wasn't like that. A good man was great, but if they met a bad man, their daughter's life would be ruined. Now that their daughter was strong and independent, they were sad, and they felt even more guilty. Tangwa returned to the villa. Because Yang Yuxuan was worried about the two children at home, she hired several helpers. As soon as she got out of the car, a smiling helper came over to her with her bag and water. The helpers liked to work in the Yang family. The mistresses and young ladies here were very polite and did not look down on them at all. First miss, second miss has been nagging you for a long time. Auntie Xiang, has little sister finished her homework? Tangwa asked casually. I'm done. I'm completing the task assigned by President Yang. Tangwa nodded and went to Yang Ji's study to look for her. Before she reached the study, Yang Ji might have heard her return and was already waiting at the door of the study. Chapter 4587. Yang Ji was 8 years old this year, so she wasn't considered young anymore. She looked very similar to Tangwa, so it was obvious that they were sisters. When she saw Tangwa, her calm demeanor disappeared. She ran to Tangwa with a smile and hugged Tangwa's arm. She said sweetly, "Sister, you're back. Are you tired from school?" "I'm not tired. School really wasn't tiring. To Tangwa, it was just a little boring." Yang Ji hurriedly pulled Tangwa into the house and told the others not to disturb them. She locked the house and held a book in front of Tangwa, asking Tangwa to explain it to her. Tangwa didn't refuse. Raising a capable sister who could share Yang Yuxuan's burden was her most difficult task at the moment. They were both Yang Yuxuan's daughters. There was no reason for her to do everything, right? Yang Ji didn't know that her sister was evil. There were indeed many things that she didn't understand, but asking Tangwa for help was the happiest thing for her. She really admired her sister. Also, her sister had been taking care of her since she was in her womb. She had a very good memory. She always felt that her sister had been taking care of her when she was in her mother's womb. She even sang to her. Later, when she heard her sister sing, she thought that she was right. Later, her mother also said that when she was pregnant, Tangwa would always tell her stories and sing to her. Yang Ji couldn't explain to others why she admired Tangwa so much. Anyway, she just admired her. Listening to her sister's explanation of those difficult problems, she learned them, and being praised by her sister was her favorite thing. Yang Ji was very smart. Otherwise, Tangwa wouldn't have to spend so much effort because she was indeed talented in this area. She explained the problems that Yang Ji didn't know. As expected, Yang Ji understood them immediately. Then she looked at Tangwa with sparkling eyes. Tangwa said, "Gigi, you're very good." Yang Ji laughed when she heard that. She happily pulled Tangwa to eat. Tangwa was no longer afraid that Yang Ji would expose these things in front of Yang Yuxuan, because under her brainwashing, Yang Ji would not say these things to Yang Yuxuan. When Yang Yuxuan came back, she saw her two well-behaved daughters sitting together and eating desserts. At that moment, her heart melted. Out of habit, she walked over and touched Tangwa's head. Then she touched Yang Ji's head. She never checked Tangwa's homework, but she wanted to check Yang Ji's homework. Yang Yuxuan was very confident in Tangwa, probably because of her childhood impression of Tangwa. After the checkup, the three of them had a meal together. After the meal, they took a walk and chatted. When it was time, they went to bed. They lived a very regular life. Tangwa didn't tell Yang Yuxuan that Jiang Juxiang came to find her. Even if she told her, there was no solution. She couldn't make Jiang Juxiang disappear. Besides, this wasn't her purpose, so she didn't bother to tell Yang Yuxuan. Just like that, the day passed peacefully. The next day, after school, Tangwa walked out of the school gate with Meng Shi and met Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. Meng Shi recognized Jiang Juxiang and hurriedly pulled Tangwa. "Your grandma is here to pick you up." The corner of Tangwa's mouth twitched. Meng Shi's IQ was not bad, and her grades were among the best. Why did she speak so stupidly? However, on second thought, Meng Shi was only 13 or 14 years old now, so she probably didn't know much about these things. Tangwa didn't explain too much. In school, she wasn't the talkative one. Even so, there were quite a lot of people who liked her because she was smart. No matter what she learned, she would not refuse anyone who came to ask her for advice. She was very popular with her classmates. Some of them were afraid to ask the teachers, so they had an inexplicable admiration for her when they came to find her. Chapter 4588. Is that your father? Meng Shi looked at Tang Tailin in surprise. Tang Tailin was indeed very handsome, and he cared about his image very much. He would never let himself look sloppy. "My father." Tangwa didn't deny this relationship and said coldly. Meng Shi didn't notice it, and she didn't care. She watched coldly as Meng Shi walked step by step toward the plot she was looking forward to. What would Meng Shi choose this time? Seeing Meng Shi's surprised and envious eyes, Tangwa didn't look forward to it at all. Meng Shi's choice might still be the same as in the plot. "He's your father? If you didn't tell me, I would have thought it was a celebrity." Meng Shi's eyes widened. "Tangwa, you're so lucky to have such a handsome father who comes to pick you up after school. If my father did this, I don't know how touched I would be. You're too calm. I don't expect my father to treat me well. I think it's good enough even if it's just a little bit." Meng Shi had told Tangwa about her family before. Her father was more biased toward her stepmother and younger brother. He didn't ask about the other people's attitude toward Meng Shi. The two of them had already walked to the school gate. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin walked over and stopped in front of Tangwa. Tang Tailin didn't know how to communicate with Tangwa. Jiang Juxiang quickly smoothed things over. Tangwa glanced at them indifferently. "What's the matter?" Tangwa's coldness didn't disperse Jiang Juxiang's enthusiasm. She still said with a smile, "Your father wants to pick you up for a meal. We haven't seen each other in a long time." "Then there's no need." Meng Shi was stunned. This time, she finally realized that Tangwa's attitude toward Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin seemed a little cold. She thought that these two people didn't look like her grandmother and father. There might be some misunderstanding. Mengshi pulled Tanggua and asked in a low voice, "Why don't you eat with them? Aren't they your grandmother and father?" Tanggua retracted her gaze and looked at Mengshi. "I don't want to eat with them." This time, Mengshi understood that there must be some story that had to be told. Tanggua broke away from Mengshi's arm and turned to get into the car, not giving Mengshi a chance to ask again. How could she break her persona and reveal her secrets to Mengshi? From her behavior, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that there must be some family conflict. Aren't they good friends? Then he should be on her side. However, Mengshi was different. She felt that with such a good grandmother and father, there must be some misunderstanding that made them not close. Therefore, when Jiang Juxiang and Mengshi communicated, she didn't try to avoid arousing suspicion at all. She even told them about Tanggua's situation at school. Jiang Juxiang's face was filled with excitement, and her eyes were filled with tears. Tang Tailin was also a little moved. He didn't expect his daughter to be so smart and amazing. She had always been a top student in the grade and was #1 in every subject. Tanggua did this to make Yang Yuxuan proud, lest she let her imagination run wild and think that her daughter was not good-looking, so she divorced her. As long as she got better and better, Yang Yuxuan would think that her choice was very right. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin invited Mengshi to a restaurant and behaved really amiably. Who would have thought that they used to be like this? After hearing Mengshi's words, the two of them had complicated expressions. At this moment, Mengshi asked if there was any misunderstanding between them. Chapter 4589. Of course, Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin couldn't tell her the truth. They only vaguely said that there was something wrong with Tang Tailin and Yang Yuxuan's relationship. Mengshi naturally thought that Tang Tailin and Yang Yuxuan's divorce had caused Tanggua's psychological trauma. In addition, for some reason, Yang Yuxuan left with Tanggua. After so many years, they hadn't seen each other. Tanggua blamed her father and grandmother. Before leaving, Mengshi even told the two of them that she would persuade Tanggua, hoping that they would resolve the misunderstanding as soon as possible. This was also her reward for treating her to a meal today. Jiang Juxiang even exchanged phone numbers with Mengshi, saying that she needed to ask Mengshi about some things in the future. Mengshi didn't refuse. In her opinion, no matter what, the two of them were Tanggua's grandmother and father. They were close relatives, so it was impossible for them to really break up. Besides, the two of them were really good. If she had such a father and grandmother, she would be so happy that she would go crazy. Okay? She couldn't wait to throw herself into their arms. When they parted, Mengshi was still a little reluctant. She took Tang Tailin's car home, and it was on the way. She dreamed that if her father could drive her to school and pick her up, how good would that be? Mengshi's mind was filled with thoughts of how to persuade Tanggua to reconcile with Tang Tailin and Jiang Juxiang. The next day, when Mengshi saw Tanggua, she began to indirectly ask about Tanggua's family situation. Tanggua didn't say anything. Mengshi's enthusiasm wasn't dampened. When it was time for lunch, Mengshi whispered to Tanggua. Tanggua raised her head and looked at Mengshi. "Did you have dinner with them yesterday?" 20 to 50,000 yuan. Actually, your grandmother and father are pretty good. If I had such a grandmother and father, I would definitely go crazy with joy. I think they're good people, and it's not that they don't really care about you. Why can't they have a good talk together? Mengshi said according to her own thoughts. Tanggua really didn't know how to comment and didn't want to pay attention to Mengshi. She didn't know if it was because the main plot had started, but Mengshi's IQ had dropped a little. Before this, she didn't seem like a particularly annoying person. "How do you know that they care about me?" Tanggua asked. Mengshi hurriedly said, "They all came to look for you. They must have come to look for you because they care about you. I noticed it, especially your grandmother. Her eyes turned red when she saw you. She must have missed you so much that her eyes turned red." Tanggua was speechless when she saw Mengshi's sympathetic face. Some things can't be seen on the surface. The truth might not be what you think it is. Tanggua didn't intend to tell Mengshi the specific situation. If he was a real friend and knew what was good for him, he should give up the idea of helping them reconcile when she was disgusted. Actually, your father and grandmother didn't abandon you on purpose. They must be feeling terrible. But at that time, it would definitely be better for you to follow your mother. In Meng Shi's opinion, this was the case. Tanggua's mother's condition should be better than her father's. Maybe she was a rich young lady. If a rich young lady was going to get a divorce, it was impossible for her to not want her child. Tang Tailin couldn't win over someone with power and influence. Meng Shi, things aren't what you think. I hope you don't talk about this anymore. Tanggua put down her bowl and chopsticks. Also, don't come over to be their lobbyist. Meng Shi saw that Tanggua was a little angry, so he quickly stopped talking about this topic and apologized to Tanggua. As for not being their lobbyist, he didn't take it to heart. Instead, he thought that he had to find other ways to move Tanggua. It was useless to say such dry words. Chapter 45-90. For the next few days, Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin waited for Tanggua to finish school at the school gate. Tanggua looked cold on the surface, but she was not as impatient as they imagined. She saw the change in Meng Shi. She would say a few words about her attitude towards Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin every day, but Meng Shi did not listen at all. She felt that there was some misunderstanding between them and felt that it was a pity to deal with it this way. In fact, Meng Shi was not the only person in Tanggua's class who was familiar with her. However, relatively speaking, Meng Shi and she knew each other in primary school and junior high school. In the eyes of many people, their relationship was better. In fact, there was another girl who had a good relationship with her. The reason why they did not go home together after school every day was that this girl was a boarding student. Her name was Zhang Xingyue. In the past few days, Meng Shi found that Tanggua was unwilling to talk to her about Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. Anyway, whenever she mentioned it, Tanggua's attitude would be very cold. She did not know what to do. She also found that it was useless to persuade her directly, so she thought of Zhang Xingyue. Usually, the three of them would participate in school activities together. However, Zhang Xingyue was a little dull. She felt that her brain was not as good as other students. After class, as long as she was in school, she was basically reading and doing exercises. She was many times more hardworking than Meng Shi. Zhang Xingyue. While Tanggua was not around, Meng Shi poked Zhang Xingyue, who was sitting in front of her. Zhang Xingyue felt the movement and turned around. She was a little puzzled. What's wrong? Meng Shi quickly moved the chair to Zhang Xingyue's side and said in a low voice, I have something. Can you help me think of a way? You go first. Zhang Xingyue pushed her glasses. She was considered pretty, but she always had a pimple on her nose. Every time the old pimple healed, a new one would appear. It did not grow anywhere except on the tip of her nose. It was red and a little big. Zhang Xingyue's personality was more gentle and shy. Originally, she did not think much of the pimple on the tip of her nose. However, after entering junior high school, some male students would laugh at it, causing her to become more introverted and her grades dropped a lot. One afternoon in the first year of junior high school, Tanggua was on duty. She came back from taking out the trash and happened to hear Zhang Xingyue crying. Thus, they got to know each other. Zhang Xingyue's foundation was a little weak. Her family condition was worse than any of her classmates. She was raised by her grandmother. What she cared about the most was not that people would laugh at her for having a pimple on the tip of her nose, but because of the drop in her grades, she felt that she had let down her grandmother's expectations. However, she was too shy to ask her teacher. She felt that she would cause trouble for her teacher. However, after getting to know Tanggua, she still plucked up the courage to ask Tanggua questions. After a while, they became more familiar with each other. Zhang Xingyue's grades were still not as good as Meng Shi's and Tanggua's, but it was not a problem for her to be in the top 5 of the class. She was friends with Tanggua, and she was one of the top 5 students in the class. Because of her hard work, the teacher appointed her as the study committee member. Her confidence had increased a lot. It's like this. Meng Shi whispered to Zhang Xingyue about his experiences over the past few days. As Meng Shi continued, Zhang Xingyue frowned. Although she already had her own thoughts, she still waited for Meng Shi to finish. It's like this. Help me persuade her. After my contact, Tanggua's father and grandmother are really good people. Therefore, I want to help them reconcile. No matter what, they are relatives. There must be some small misunderstanding before, Mengshi said with a serious face. The summit. Chapter 4591. Zhang Xingyue didn't agree with Mengshi. Based on what Mengshi said, there was indeed nothing wrong with those two people. She couldn't judge whether they were good or bad. After all, some people couldn't be judged after 1 or 2 contacts. What she cared about was Tangua's attitude. She had known Tangua for more than a year and knew her character very well. Since the other party was unwilling to go back with them, there must be a reason that outsiders didn't know. As Tangua's good friend, she felt that she shouldn't interfere in this kind of thing. Mengshi, you'd better not interfere in this matter. Whether Tangua is willing to accept them or not is Tangua's business. Besides, you've only met them once or twice, so you don't know them well enough. Since Tangua doesn't like to talk about this, don't talk about it. Mengshi was a little incredulous and quickly grabbed Zhang Xingyue. Xingyue, Tangua is our good friend. How can you be so cold? Can't you help her? Her father and grandmother are so good. Don't you want them to be happy? Zhang Xingyue was not good with words. She really didn't know how to refute Mengshi's words. However, she still insisted on her own thoughts. In short, I won't help you persuade Tangua unless she wants to. She knows better than us whether those two people are good or not. Anyway, no matter what Mengshi said, she was on Tangua's side. Tangua didn't want to reconcile with those two people. As a good friend, why should she help outsiders do such unnecessary things? Mengshi was really speechless when she saw Zhang Xingyue's serious look. Forget it, forget it. I don't expect you to do anything. When Tangua came back, Mengshi saw that she was in a good mood and mentioned Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. She felt that Jiang Juxiang was very pitiful. Every time she came over, her eyes were filled with tears. She was unlike her grandmother, who gritted her teeth every time she saw her. Her face was full of wrinkles and was a little ugly. Even if you don't want to reconcile, why don't you have a meal with your grandmother? It's really not easy for her to wait for you every day. Mengshi continued to persuade her. Zhang Xingyue frowned as she listened. She stopped reading and observed Tangua's expression. She found that when Mengshi was talking about the two people, Tangua was very cold. Didn't we agree not to talk about this anymore? Tangua's tone was light, and her brows were also wrinkled. She was a little bit worried about Mengshi's persistence. She was calculating the time in her heart. It shouldn't be long before Mengshi would meet the male lead, Wen Ran. Thinking of this, she was no longer angry. I wonder how Wen Yuan and the male lead are getting along. At the very least, they should be good brothers. Tangua, what do you think of my suggestion? Mengshi asked happily. Just have a meal together. You don't have to do anything else. If she couldn't convince Tangua, she would feel a little embarrassed. Every time, Jiang Juxiang would give her a lot of snacks. Occasionally, she would ask about her situation and even invite her to dinner. Tangua was speechless. Mengshi's brain was getting worse and worse recently. Just as she was about to say something, Zhang Xingyue couldn't help but say, since Tangua is unwilling, don't persuade her. If Tangua was willing, she would have eaten with them long ago. How could that be? If I hadn't tried to persuade her, Tangua definitely wouldn't have said more than 2 words to them. You don't know, but recently, they have been coming over every day. Tangua doesn't talk to them at all. She just turns around and gets into the car. Mengshi's face was full of sympathy. I think they really care about you. Zhang Xingyue whispered, since they care, won't they disturb Tangua's studies by coming over every day? Tangua agreed with this, but she didn't expect Mengshi to say, how could that be? They all come over in the afternoon after school. They just want to see Tangua. Zhang Xingyue, peak. Chapter 4592. Mengshi. Just as Mengshi was about to say something more, Tangua raised her voice a little, sounding obviously angry. Mengshi quickly shut up and looked at Tangua cautiously. Tangua glanced at her coldly, which made Mengshi a little scared. She wanted to grab Tangua's arm, but Tangua avoided her. Don't mention this in front of me again. If you mention it again, I'll break off our friendship. Mengshi's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it and felt wronged. She worked so hard for Tangua's sake. She wanted to see their family live in harmony. Why couldn't Tanggua understand her? She really wanted what was best for her. Otherwise, why would she work so hard every day? Zhang Xingyue pushed her glasses and turned to read. She wasn't good at talking. She wasn't close to Mengxi. She was familiar with her because of Tanggua. She had already tried to persuade Mengxi, but Mengxi didn't listen. She didn't want to say anything more. She thought to herself that she should interact less with Mengxi in the future so that she wouldn't be affected by her. Tanggua said that she wanted to break off their friendship. It was obvious that she had some grudges with those two people that she couldn't talk about with outsiders. For example, she didn't want to share her family's embarrassing matters with her friends. Even if she did, they couldn't help her. At most, they would say a few words and then use it as a topic of conversation. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before many people knew about her family's situation. This would make her feel very embarrassed. She knew her own affairs best. Presumably, Tanggua was the same. Thinking of this, Zhang Xingyue turned around and tugged at Mengxi. Since Tanggua doesn't want to, don't force her. Do you think she'll be happy if you force Tanggua to eat? Mengxi, you're Tanggua's friend, not those two people's friend. No wonder Tanggua is angry that you're here to persuade her. Mengxi felt wronged. After hearing Zhang Xingyue's words, she felt even more wronged. I just think they're really good. I just want to see them reconcile. She wanted to continue speaking, but she found that Zhang Xingyue had already turned around to read. Tanggua also sat down and took out her tablet to play. Her grades were good, and it was noon now. The school would not confiscate electronic products. As long as she did not play in class, there would be no problem. Mengxi looked at Zhang Xingyue and then at Tanggua. When she realized that Tanggua was really ignoring her, she felt a little helpless. She did not think that she had done anything wrong. She was really doing it for the good of Tanggua. There was also Jiang Juxiang, Tanggua's grandmother. She looked really pitiful. For the whole afternoon, Tanggua didn't talk to Mengxi again. Mengxi didn't dare to say anything. She was also a little afraid that Tanggua would really break off their friendship. After school, she chased after Tanggua. Zhang Xingyue was a little worried, so she hurriedly chased after her. Sure enough, Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin came again with some snacks in their hands. In their opinion, as long as they came every day, they would definitely be able to move Tanggua. However, they didn't know that doing so was useless. The more Mengxi looked at the two of them, the more pitiful she felt. She wanted to say something to Tanggua, but she stopped. Every time she wanted to say something, Tanggua's words of breaking off their friendship rang in her mind, making her unable to speak. Tanggua stopped in front of Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. Before the two of them could send a message, Tanggua's cold voice sounded. Your appearance has affected my studies. Please don't disturb me in the future. Mengxi wanted to say something, but she was a little afraid. Chapter 45-93. Zhang Xingyue stood at the side and watched this scene. She did not feel much. Anyway, she did not sympathize with Jiang Juxiang at all. This was because she had once faced such a scene. Her biological parents favored boys over girls. In order to give birth to a younger brother, they abandoned her. It was her grandmother who picked her up and raised her. Later, when she was 10 years old, her parents came back and wanted to take her back. It was similar to Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin smiled awkwardly, but they were not angry with Tanggua. The two of them really wanted to take Tanggua back because Tang Tailin might only have this one bloodline in his life. Yang Ji's surname was Yang, so they did not think that she was the blood of the Tang family. The more they knew how outstanding Tanggua was, the more unwilling they were to give up. Even if Tanggua's attitude was not good, which made Mengxi sympathize with the two of them more and more, she did not dare to say anything at this moment. After Tanggua said that sentence, she said goodbye to Zhang Xingyue and got into the car without saying goodbye to Mengxi. Mengxi felt Tanggua's coldness and alienation and finally panicked. She called out twice, but Tanggua did not respond. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin walked in front of Mengxi and apologized. Then, they gave a bag of snacks in their hands to Mengxi. Mengxi could not refuse. They also noticed Zhang Xingyue, who wanted to get closer to Tanggua's classmate, and gave her the other bag of snacks. Zhang Xingyue politely refused, saying that she did not deserve it. However, Jiang Juxiang was not willing to give up. She hoped that Zhang Xingyue could tell her about Tang Guo's situation and help her. Zhang Xingyue also refused. She said goodbye to them and returned to the dormitory. In front of Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin, she did not say anything to Meng Shi. Thinking of Meng Shi's reaction, she felt that it was useless to say anything, so she threw this matter to the back of her mind. Meng Shi and Jiang Juxiang talked for a while and then embarked on the way home gloomily. She wanted to go back quickly, so she took the alley and rode a bicycle. Then she met Wenran, who was fighting. "Dear host, they have met." Tang Guo ignored Meng Shi for a long time. Meng Shi finally panicked and did not dare to mention Jiang Juxiang again. However, every time she looked at Tang Guo, she wanted to say something but hesitated. Tang Guo had ignored the other party for half a month. Finally, she could talk to him again. This time, Meng Shi didn't dare to say anything to her. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin would occasionally come to the school gate, but Tang Guo would always walk past them. When Yang Yuxuan found out about this, she felt that she was too careless and felt very guilty. She didn't notice that someone had come to disturb her precious daughter. They won't come again. Yang Yuxuan stroked Dun's head like a bossy president. "I'll take care of this. If you encounter such a situation in the future, you must tell Mom, okay?" Tang Guo agreed obediently. Yang Ji also clenched her fists and said angrily, "When I grow up, I can also protect my sister." Tang Guo was instantly happy. She didn't raise this sister for nothing. Yang Yuxuan's method was very rough. First, she called Jiang Juxiang and warned her that if she didn't want to watch Tang Tailin's video, she should be tactful and not disturb her daughter's studies. What she did to Tang Tailin was even simpler. She sent him a video to tell him to give up. In the beginning, these two people didn't care about Tang Guo at all. Why did they suddenly know what blood relations were as they got older? How shameless! Yang Yuxuan felt that it wasn't enough and used some connections. Tang Tailin didn't have time to be angry at all. He was being checked on every day. They really found out that there were some problems with the restaurant and asked him to rectify it quickly. Peak. Chapter 45-94. Tang Tailin never thought that Yang Yuxuan was the one who did it. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin didn't know that the current Yang Yuxuan was no longer the Yang Yuxuan of the past. The main reason was that Yang Yuxuan didn't appear in public at all, so they didn't pay attention to her. Tang Guo lived a peaceful life for a while until Meng Shi brought Wenran to her and said that she wanted to help Wenran study hard every day. Tang Guo was energized again. Very good. Tang Guo looked at Yuan Jiao, who was beside Wenran. He was indeed handsome and gentle, slightly shorter than Wenran. According to Meng Shi's introduction, this was Wenran's good brother. They had gone through life and death together. Meng Shi didn't date Wenran. They were still good friends at the moment. Because of some of their experiences, Meng Shi was considered special in Wenran's eyes. Now, Meng Shi planned to encourage Wenran to study. Wenran was now the school bully of this school. Not many people dared to provoke him. Meng Shi suddenly approached him. Many people didn't dare to provoke Meng Shi. This time, Meng Shi's status really rose, especially those brothers under Wenran. Because of Wenran's attitude, all of them were very friendly to Meng Shi. Tang Guo didn't have any reaction. Meng Shi originally wanted Tang Guo to help tutor Wenran, but seeing Tang Guo's cold appearance, he didn't dare to speak again. However, he still told Wenran that if there was anything he didn't understand, he could ask Tang Guo. Although Wenran was older than Meng Shi, he was a repeat student. Naturally, Yuan could only repeat a year with him. Originally, Tang Guo's group was made up of 3 people. Now that Wenran and Yuan were added, it became a group of 5 people. Wenran didn't like Tang Guo very much. He felt that she was too arrogant and his attitude towards Meng Shi wasn't good. However, because of Meng Shi's face, he didn't show his attitude. Meng Shi also realized that the two of them didn't get along. In addition, she didn't want Tang Guo and Wenran to get too close. Xie Fan, who had returned from the competition, was in a bad mood when he saw the 2 extra boys. He glanced at Wenran indifferently. Wenran knew Xie Fan, and Xie Fan knew Wenran. Wenran did not expect Xie Fan to be so close to Tang Guo. It was said that the young master of the Xie family was not close to anyone. He rarely paid attention to these things, so he was not sure about the details. However, he didn't pay too much attention to this. Xie Fan was relieved to find that Wenran was hostile to Tanghua. However, he still didn't like Wenran. Recently, Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin did not come to look for Tanghua. After school in the afternoon, Tanghua and Xie Fan went home together, while Mengshi went home with Wenran and An Yuan on a bicycle. It seemed that they were getting more and more intimate, but something was still missing. Zhang Xingyue didn't pay much attention to these things. She studied hard every day because this was her way out. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin didn't dare to look for Tanghua anymore, but they still kept in touch with Mengshi. Occasionally, they would even invite Mengshi to eat at a restaurant. Tang Tailin's restaurant was indeed not bad. Mengshi even recommended it to Wenran. Later on, Wenran often brought others to eat there. After a few times, they became familiar with each other. Mengshi would often tell Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin about Tanghua's recent situation. One day, she suddenly asked why the two of them didn't wait for Tanghua at the school gate. Jiang Juxiang's expression changed slightly. After a long time, she said, "Guoguo's mother doesn't like it." Mengshi immediately imagined that the two of them were threatened by a powerful young lady. She sympathized with them even more. Chapter 45-95. Of course, Jiang Juxiang didn't dare to say that it was because of what had happened in the past. It was impossible for them to reconcile with Yang Yuxuan. If Yang Yuxuan really didn't care about their old relationship and exposed those videos, Tang Tailin would lose face again. Tang Tailin was also a little upset about this matter. Yang Yuxuan's email also reminded him of Wen Lang. He hadn't contacted Wen Lang for many years. Both sides had their own reasons for not contacting each other. Wen Lang was busy trying to have more say in the company, and Tang Tailin didn't dare to pester him because of Jiang Juxiang. However, Mengshi didn't know about these things. Instead, she thought that Yang Yuxuan was a little too much. No matter what, Jiang Juxiang was Tanghua's grandmother, and Tang Tailin was Tanghua's father. Even if the court awarded Tanghua to Yang Yuxuan had no right to stop them from meeting. She suddenly felt that Tanghua's understanding of Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin might be a little different because of Yang Yuxuan. Tanghua didn't know about Mengshi's imagination. If she knew, she would definitely want to blow her head off. When they left the restaurant, Mengshi was still talking to Wenran about this matter. She looked very indignant. "Wenran, can you help? I feel that Grandma Jiang and Uncle Tang are really pitiful. Tanghua has a weak relationship with them. It should be because of her mother's influence." Wenran frowned. "What do you want to do?" "I just want to find a way to let Tanghua get close to Grandma Jiang and Uncle Tang. They are all good people. I want to let Tanghua see the truth and not be influenced by her mother's subjective opinion." "Wenran, can you think of any way?" Wenran shook her head. "I don't know." He still didn't understand his own family relationship. How could he solve other people's family problems? If it were someone else who said this to him, he wouldn't have bothered. He had never liked to meddle in other people's business. Fortunately, the person who said this was Mengshi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have listened. Perhaps he had a filter for Mengshi. No matter what she said or did, Wenran was very patient. He even thought that she was a little cute. "Sigh, can't you think of a way? You're so smart." Mengshi sighed. "Now, I can't even bring this up to Tanghua. If I do, she'll break off all ties with me." It wasn't unreasonable for Mengshi to say that Wenran was smart. After she helped Wenran with her cram classes, Wenran's grades, which were originally at the bottom, were now hovering around the middle. If he continued to make up for it, he might be able to enter the top 10. They were only in the second year of junior high school. Although the end of the semester was approaching, there was still a year and a half before high school. While Wenran was thinking about it, An Yuan, who had been pretending to be invisible, said, "Since Tanghua doesn't want you to talk about this, you might as well not bother about it. After all, this is her family's business. As an outsider, you might not know a lot about it." Wenran was pulled back to reality by An Yuan's voice and nodded in agreement. An Yuan is right. Since Tanghua doesn't want you to get involved in this matter, then forget it. Actually, he didn't like Tanghua very much. Or rather, he didn't like any of the young ladies in the circle. This was all thanks to his biological mother, who was a typical rich young lady. For as long as he could remember things, he didn't have a good impression of his biological mother. That's because Tanggua was influenced by her mother. That's why she doesn't like Grandma Jiang and Uncle Tang. I believe that when she gets to know them better, she won't be as distant as she is now. When Yuan heard this, he almost burst out laughing. How could an outsider like you know better than she does? Peek. Chapter 45-96. Although when Ran didn't agree to meddle in Tanggua's affairs, he didn't stop Meng Shi from meddling. Meng Shi was different from the other girls he knew. He liked people who were unpretentious and lively. Meng Shi racked her brains and thought of all kinds of ideas, but she couldn't come up with a good one for the time being. She tried to mention Jiang Juxiang in front of Tanggua, but Tanggua's expression immediately changed and she didn't dare to mention it again. Until Jiang Juxiang was hospitalized, it wasn't a serious illness. She just slipped and fell in a restaurant. Old people couldn't fall, and it was easy for them to be hospitalized. Meng Shi felt that the opportunity had come. During lunch, she fiddled with her phone and mentioned Jiang Juxiang's hospitalization to Tanggua. Tanggua put down her bowl and chopsticks. Xie Fan saw that she didn't eat much. Her appetite had been spoiled and she probably wouldn't eat anymore. Her face looked as if someone owed her millions, but now it seemed that the debt had risen to tens of millions. When Ran immediately sensed Xie Fan's hostility towards Meng Shi and stopped eating. He even moved closer to Meng Shi, afraid that she would be taken advantage of. Zhang Xingyue also stopped eating. She felt that Meng Shi's understanding of some things wasn't very good. Tanggua had clearly told her not to mention these things several times, but she insisted. She felt that their friendship would end sooner or later. In Zhang Xingyue's opinion, Meng Shi wasn't a tactful person. She didn't want to have more interactions with Meng Shi and had become much colder recently. Meng Shi was speechless for a moment, but when she thought of how pitiful Jiang Juxiang was, she braced herself and said, "She fell. No matter what misunderstanding there is, why don't you go and have a look first? Her injuries will heal faster. Meng Shi, since you value her so much, you can acknowledge her as your grandmother. I won't stop you." Tanggua stood up and turned to leave. Meng Shi was a little flustered. She called Tanggua twice, but Tanggua didn't respond. In fact, the classmates more or less knew that Meng Shi wanted to help Tanggua ease the relationship between her grandmother and father. Many people felt that Meng Shi was a little nosy. After Tanggua left, Xie Fan naturally left as well. Zhang Xingyue was almost done eating. She quickly took 2 bites and left as well. However, she still left a word of advice to Meng Shi. "If you care about Tanggua as a friend, I think it's best not to mention this matter again." After that, she hurriedly chased after Tanggua and left. She still had a lot of homework to do. She had to do most of it and strive to be admitted to the high school of this school with excellent results. She wanted to get a high scholarship so that she could reduce the burden of her grandmother. Meng Shi sat in his original seat, feeling very helpless and aggrieved. "I just feel that Grandma Jiang is really pitiful. No matter what misunderstanding there is, now that she has fallen, going to take a look can comfort her loving heart." And Yuan was speechless. There was something wrong with Meng Shi's brain. In fact, he also knew that if he didn't know how to invite outsiders, even outsiders who knew about it, would feel that there was nothing wrong with Meng Shi's statement. After all, in this world, the weak were more likely to arouse sympathy. The main thing was that they had never felt pain for themselves. Many people didn't feel pain for themselves and could even show their kindness. "It's fine if she doesn't want to." When Ran comforted Meng Shi, "Don't mention this in the future. She might even blame you." Meng Shi quickly shook his head. "I really want them to reconcile. I don't mean anything else. But let's eat. Since it's useless, don't worry about it." Meng Shi felt a little sorry for Grandma Jiang. She had previously vowed that she would definitely bring Tanggua over. The Apex. Chapter 45-97. On this day, Tanggua still didn't talk to Meng Shi. The reason why she didn't cut ties with Meng Shi directly was that the main event hadn't come yet. She was very patient. In the car, Xie Fan was holding a pile of snacks. All of them were unsealed. He watched Tanggua stuffing them into her mouth. You have to eat your fill. Now you know you're hungry. You can be angry, but your body is yours. Tangwa paused and glanced at Xiefan. You is right. You're like a nagging old man. Not many people know you're like this, right? If they do, you can forget about your character. Xiefan said, good advice is unpleasant to the ear. If you think Meng Shi is troublesome, don't interact with her in the future. She always doesn't know her place and meddles in other people's business. Don't you feel annoyed? It's okay. Xiefan didn't warn Meng Shi because he found that Tangwa changed her face very quickly. For example, today in the cafeteria, after Meng Shi said those words, Tangwa seemed to turn around and leave angrily. However, after taking 2 steps, her expression returned to normal, as if she had never been angry. This made him a little confused. Naturally, he didn't warn Meng Shi. He felt that Tangwa seemed to be following some procedure. This feeling also made him feel very strange. Won't she affect you? Tangwa shook her head. No, don't worry. Puma, will I be affected? Xiefan thought of how Tangwa could learn anything at a glance and felt a headache coming on. This little girl was too smart and a little bad. She wasn't easy to coax. Those 2 people didn't come to you again? No, I was warned by my mother some time ago. The restaurant was also cleaned. I'm very busy. Xiefan knew that Yang Yuxuan and Tangwa were not to be trifled with, so they would never do anything secretly. If they really wanted to do something, he would definitely tell Tangwa. At present, it seemed that Yang Yuxuan could deal with it alone. There was no need for him at all. It seemed that he could only help Tangwa carry snacks and a small mirror. This was okay. At least he was of some use. System, what a miserable young man. Do you know who Sun Wenran is? Xiefan paid attention to Wenran and even made a copy of his information. Then, he accidentally found out that Wenran's father was the person who pestered Tang Tailin's father. After the incident with Tang Tailin, not many people knew that the other man was Wenran. Yu Yu was Yang Yuxuan's close friend. Few people knew about it. At that time, he was still young and had seen Wenlang's photos. If he hadn't noticed Wenran, he wouldn't have remembered these things. Who's it? Tangwa naturally knew. Xiefan wasn't sure if she knew, but he still answered, Wenlang. Wenlang is the one who was pestering Tang Tailin. Xiefan knew that Tangwa didn't care about these things for a long time. Besides, they are all smart people, not ordinary children. Their psychological endurance is definitely not comparable to ordinary people. So that's how it is. Tangwa smiled, making Xiefan feel cold. He always felt that she knew. But Tangwa was already eating her snacks seriously, so he didn't say anything. The final exam is coming soon. Xiefan tried to find a topic. Tangwa thought of Zhang Xingyue. She felt that this girl was very hardworking and planned to tutor her. After that day, Meng Shi didn't mention Jiang Juxiang in front of Tangwa again. Jiang Juxiang was really disappointed in the hospital. Meng Shi felt that she was very pitiful and felt a little guilty. For several days, he dragged Wenran to see Jiang Juxiang. Unknowingly, the final exam came. The final exam results were announced. Without any surprises, Tangwa was definitely first in the grade. Chapter 45-98. Surprisingly, Zhang Xingyue climbed from the top 5 of the class to 2nd place and 5th place in the grade. This was a happy thing for Zhang Xingyue. For this, she thanked Tangwa fiercely and even took 2 pieces of old bacon from home for Tangwa. Tangwa accepted it happily. This thing was delicious. She liked it. It's nothing much. Thank you for helping me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get such good results. I like to eat this very much. It's just what I want to eat. Tangwa handed the old bacon to Xiefan. Let's go back and cook it later. Xiefan stood beside Tangwa. He was obviously a reserved and noble young man. However, he was carrying 2 pieces of old bacon at the school gate. No matter how one looked at it, he looked a little out of place. However, he still replied, okay. He glared at the old bacon in his hand. Although he was reluctant, he still accepted his fate and took it. It was just like when he and Tangwa sat on the seesaw when they were young, or when he was the only one who pushed her on the swing. Zhang Xingyue pursed her lips and smiled. See you next semester. I'm going back. The students watched in amazement as Xie Fan and Tangwa got into a very expensive car with 2 pieces of cured meat. The corners of Xie Fan's mouth twitched. The sulky senior's style was really different. Even if he carried the old bacon in his hand, it had its own style. Actually, you can put it in the trunk. There's no need to carry it. When the car started, Tangwa saw it and reminded him. Xie Fan, he was used to it. Usually, he was the one who carried Tangwa's school bag and snacks into the car. Therefore, he forgot to put the bacon in the trunk. You can take it if you like. I think you like it very much. Don't worry. I'll cook it when we get home. Xie Fan didn't know how she could tell that he was the one who was greedy. She was the one who was greedy. Forget it. Just take it that he was greedy. The holidays passed quickly, and it was time for school to start again. Tangwa found that the relationship between Meng Shi and Wen Ran was obviously more ambiguous. She didn't know if it was because of his relationship with Wen Ran, but Meng Shi would sometimes be targeted. When Tangwa encountered it, she would still help him out. Actually, she didn't need to do anything. As long as she appeared by Meng Shi's side, those people wouldn't dare to do anything. Meng Shi seemed to have forgotten that he didn't have a good time with Tangwa. Now, she really didn't dare to mention Jiang Juxiang again. The key was that she couldn't think of a good way to make sure that Tangwa wouldn't be angry. Let's talk about this later. At most, she could replace Tangwa to go to the restaurant often and visit Grandma Jiang and Uncle Tang more often. She could also reveal some information about Tangwa's situation. That would be all right. In the second semester of the 3rd year of junior high school, Meng Shi and Wen Ran broke through the last barrier and became a couple. Of course, the biggest thing they could do was to hold hands and so on. Wen Ran's grades had also improved greatly. Now, he could be considered a school bully and a top student. His grades were several points higher than Meng Shi's, making Meng Shi call him a monster. With Tangwa's help, Zhang Xingyue was able to secure the 2nd place in the grade. Wen Ran was now 3rd in the grade. No matter how hard he tried, there was no way he could surpass Zhang Xingyue and Tangwa. Tangwa would help Zhang Xingyue whenever she was free. She was always thinking about the old cured meat in Zhang Xingyue's house. Meng Shi's grades were around the 5th and 6th grades. His grades were still good. Wen Ran would also bring Meng Shi to some gatherings in the circle. Many people knew that his girlfriend was Meng Shi. When Wen Ran was admitted to high school with excellent grades, Wen Ran's father, Wen Lang, finally decided to meet Meng Shi. Because of Meng Shi's appearance, Wen Ran completely changed. He thought that this girl was good. Chapter 45-99. Wen Lang was actually similar to Tang Tailin. When he was young, he thought that Wen Ran's appearance was just a task. After all, he had someone he liked in his heart. He was middle-aged, and the Wen Corporation would definitely need an heir in the future. Wen Ran almost went astray before, which still made him a little scared. If he was asked to have a child with another woman, he would not be willing to do so. Over the years, he had been fighting with the company's shareholders, and finally, the Wen Corporation was completely in his hands. He was no longer in the situation where the shareholders could affect him with a few words. Now, he needed to cultivate his son, and at the same time, find an opportunity to continue his relationship with Tang Tailin. It was a complete surprise that Wen Ran could be changed by Meng Shi. He liked Meng Shi very much. He felt that she was smart, cute, and could urge Wen Ran to improve himself. After meeting Meng Shi, he also approved of her. When Wen Ran knew that Wen Lang had met Meng Shi, he immediately went to find him. The relationship between the father and son was close to the freezing point, but because of Meng Shi, it seemed to have melted. After knowing that Wen Lang appreciated Meng Shi very much, Wen Ran was relieved that he had no intention of objecting to their relationship. However, Wen Lang also said, "But you are my son. It's easy for you to marry Meng Shi, but you don't have the ability to protect her for the time being. You should know that in this circle, you can't protect her if you don't have the ability, right? If you don't have the ability, your mother will be the first to stop this. She can use some means to make Meng Shi unable to survive in this circle. You can't marry her and let her stay at home and not socialize, right?" Wen Ran calmed down and felt that Wen Lang was right. At present, he was just a very ordinary freshman. After graduating from high school and entering university, he would not have the ability to protect Meng Shi at all. He knew his biological mother very well. She would definitely not look down on him because of Meng Shi's identity. She might even arrange a young lady of the same status for him. Seeing Wen Ran's anxiety, Wen Lang smiled. There's still a long time before you can get married. It's not too late for you to work hard now. What should I do? This was the first time Wen Ran spoke to Wen Lang calmly. Wen Lang was very satisfied. He did not object to Meng Shi and Wen Ran being together at all. As long as his son was outstanding enough, he could marry whoever he wanted. In the future, you will go to the company to learn with me. Wen Ran, okay. He knew that this was his chance to gain the right to speak. He thought of En Yuan. I'll bring En Yuan here. En Yuan was his good brother who had gone through thick and thin with him. Wen Ran would never forget him. If we're together, he can still help me do a lot of things. Of course. Wen Lang did not refuse. In fact, he had always been aware of Wen Ran's movements. En Yuan could be considered Wen Ran's confidant. If they could be trained together, they would be a great help to Wen Ran in the future. This was a good idea. This time, Wen Ran didn't hate Wen Lang as much. On the contrary, he was somewhat grateful. At least, Wen Lang was better than his mother. As Wen Ran and Wen Lang interacted with each other, the relationship between father and son eased, and they became much closer. Wen Ran went to the company and learned a lot. After the first year of high school started, he had changed a lot. When Tanguo was in her first year of high school, Xie Fan took the college entrance examination. Xie Fan entered the examination hall with a long face and came out with a long face. Xie Fan's friends didn't think that he did badly in the exam. They guessed that he went to university after the college entrance examination and couldn't see Tanguo often. When Xie Fan went to the university to register, Tanguo even sent him off. I'll come back to see you on the weekend. Xie Fan touched Tanguo's head. There was a lot of reluctance in his eyes. He looked at the row of teenagers standing next to him. I'll leave her to you guys to take care of. The group of teenagers was speechless. Why did their task always have to stay behind to help Tanguo get food? Was this the flaw of being 2 years younger? Peek. Chapter 4600. Meng Shi hadn't mentioned Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin in front of Tanguo for a long time, and she didn't help them persuade her. It was mainly because Tanguo's attitude the previous few times really scared her. Although she didn't say it in front of Tanguo, she still often told Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin about Tanguo's situation. She, Wen Ran, and some of Wen Ran's friends basically went to Tang Tailin's restaurant for dinner every week. Jiang Juxiang, Tang Tailin, and Wen Ran were already very familiar with each other. By chance, Wen Lang reappeared in Tang Tailin's line of sight and found that Wen Ran, Meng Shi, and Tang Tailin were closer. Using this relationship, Wen Lang often appeared in front of Tang Tailin. However, Tang Tailin didn't seem to want to be entangled with him anymore. 2 failed relationships still made Tang Tailin very uncomfortable. He didn't forget Wen Lang, but he didn't want to be entangled with him for the time being. Wen Lang didn't have any intention of giving up. He originally planned to continue his relationship with Tang Tailin when he had power in his hands. As for whether they were married or not, he didn't care so much because his legal wife, Su Yi, was even more open than him. Between them, they basically played their own game and didn't interfere with each other as long as it didn't hurt the interests of the 2 families. Another reason why Tang Tailin didn't want to be entangled with Wen Lang was that he knew that he couldn't be with Wen Lang openly. Even if people knew his identity, they would only look at him as if he was Wen Lang's lover and not husband and wife. Even if Wen Lang and Su Yi played their own game and didn't have feelings for each other, in terms of morality, he was a mistress, and his reputation wasn't very good. If the old lady at home found out, she would probably make a fuss again. Moreover, he still wanted to acknowledge Tanguo as his daughter. If he continued to be entangled with Wen Lang, there was no need to think about it. Tanguo would definitely not acknowledge him as her father. Wen Lang felt Tang Tailin's rejection and found an opportunity to talk to Tang Tailin alone. Why are you running away? Wen Lang asked Tang Tailin. Tang Tailin replied coldly, so what if I don't run away? Hide in a place where we can't see the light of day and continue? These words indeed left Wen Lang somewhat speechless. You know that I haven't forgotten you. I believe that you haven't forgotten me either. Tang Tailin was in a daze. So what? Wen Lang, we're not young anymore. We can't afford to be tormented, and we don't have the heart to torment ourselves. If you want me to go back to the past and hide in a dark place with you and continue the relationship that could be abandoned at any time, I think there's really no need to torment yourself. Anyway, there won't be any results. We've been together for so many years. Do you think you can just give it up so easily? Wen Lang was a little unwilling. Now that he was truly in control of the company, he could rest assured and be with the person he liked. There was also an excellent successor. No one would stop him from pursuing the person he liked. However, the result was different from what Wen Lang had expected. Tang Tailin didn't want to go through all that trouble. The main reason was that he felt that nothing good would come out of this if he continued to struggle. They were the ones who got together first, but in the end, he still had to bear the reputation of being a third party. He was actually a prideful person. He didn't want to waste his efforts again and again without any results. Tailin, this time, I guarantee that we won't be separated again. I already have the ability to make others not dare to stop us. Trust me one more time. Chapter 4601. Tang Tailin lit a cigarette and smoked silently. He said casually, "So what? I don't think it's important anymore. Wen Lang, you'd better go back and be president when. Don't come looking for me." Wen Lang wanted to say something, but Tang Tailin pushed him away. The children are still outside. It's not good to be seen. Let's go out and eat. The dishes are cold. Wen Lang staggered from the push and failed to stop the resolute Tang Tailin. He didn't understand why their relationship, which used to be so passionate, suddenly became so distant and cold. Wen Lang couldn't help but kick the vase next to him. Fortunately, the vase was big and heavy, so he didn't kick it down. Wen Lang returned to the restaurant's private room. About a minute later, Meng Shi appeared at a corner. Her eyes were filled with shock and excitement. She really didn't expect Uncle Tang and Uncle Wen to have such a relationship. When the two of them stood together just now, they were really a match made in heaven. When she saw the two of them fighting, she almost stood up and asked them to stay together. Fortunately, she was still calm and felt that it was a little inappropriate for her to suddenly appear. After eavesdropping on their conversation, she thought that the two of them had each other. Most likely, they separated for various reasons. This made Meng Shi feel very regretful. She couldn't wait to think of a way to help the two of them solve their relationship problems. If they liked each other for a long time and couldn't be together, it would be a pity. They were really a good match when they stood together. When Meng Shi returned to the private room, she still couldn't control her emotions. When Ran noticed her situation and asked in a low voice, Meng Shi quickly shook her head. She felt that it was better not to make this matter public for the time being, so as not to make the two parties feel awkward. Meng Shi's grades were currently in the top 10 of the grade. In this high school, it was already very outstanding. Tanghua also appreciated this point because Meng Shi wasn't like Zhang Xingyue, who read and memorized books all the time and spent most of her free time studying. To be able to achieve such results, she was really talented. Meng Shi was more serious in class. After class, she basically did her own things. He was a little similar to Wen Ran, but Wen Ran was better than him. Sometimes, he didn't even need to listen much in class. He just needed to flip through the books to get a good ranking. At least it was the standard for the male and female lead. It wouldn't be too bad. Perhaps the only person in the entire grade who was more relaxed than them was Tanghua. During Meng Shi's leisure time after class, she would watch and play some games. She could be considered a little fujoshi. Unlike other fujoshis, she did not separate the paper men from the real world. Perhaps it was because she had too little life experience that she believed that the love between a man and a man in the real world was the same as the love between a man and a man in the paper men's world. When she was in the third year of junior high school, she started to be obsessed with the genre of LGBTQ, radio dramas, and anime. Until now, it has become more and more decadent. Sometimes, when she saw two handsome boys walking together with their arms around each other's shoulders, she would wonder if there was something going on between the two of them. Occasionally, she would secretly say to Tanggua, "These two boys look so compatible." He would also say to Zhang Xingyue, "Do you think they look like a couple? Why do I feel that they are both gay?" Whenever two boys got close to each other, she would imagine a romance drama in her head. Chapter 4602. When she was shopping, if she saw two real couples, she would be so excited that she would scream and talk to the people around her. Tangua's attitude had always been cold and indifferent. However, she would not criticize Meng Shi's hobby because she had her own motives. Zhang Xingyue was different. Every time she was seriously doing questions, Meng Shi would suddenly say something and really disturb her. Therefore, she would occasionally criticize Meng Shi rudely, saying that it was not good for Meng Shi to be like this. She was just fooling around and was not what Meng Shi thought at all. Her attitude was so obvious that she almost tied the two of them together and would cause trouble for them. Over time, Meng Shi knew that there was no point in discussing this with Zhang Xingyue. She felt that Zhang Xingyue was a little rigid. She only knew how to study every day and spent all her time on studying. In the end, her grades were sometimes not in the top 5 of the grade, although it was not to the extent of falling out of the top 10. However, because it was easier for her to stay in the top 10 of the grade, she took it for granted that studies should be balanced between work and rest. Like her, she studied while playing. When Ran was similar to her and had better grades than her. In any case, she did not agree with Zhang Xingyue's study method. She felt that she was too rigid. However, her relationship with Zhang Xingyue was not that good. She would occasionally say a few words, but Zhang Xingyue would not listen, so she stopped talking. As a result, her relationship with Zhang Xingyue was not as good as before. In fact, Zhang Xingyue could not wait. She felt that the most important time in the first year of high school was to build the foundation. She could not be happier if Meng Shi did not disturb her. She wasn't talented in her studies, so she didn't think that she could easily get good grades just by playing around. Since she was young, she knew that everyone was different. Everyone had their own way of studying. She was not smart. If she wanted to achieve her goal, she could only spend all her time on studying. She did not dare to relax at all because this was her only way out. She had envied others for being able to obtain excellent results so easily, but she had never complained, nor did she have any intention of relaxing. She met Tanggua, who was willing to help her. Her grandmother said that she was a lucky person. She could not let this luck go to waste. She had to work hard for her future. She also felt that way. She did not care if others understood her or not. She was working hard for her future. Ever since he knew that Tang Tailin and Wen Lang had an unforgettable relationship, Meng Shi had paid special attention to this matter. Every time Wen Lang used the excuse of going to the restaurant to visit Tang Tailin, her heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. At this time, Tanggua decided to ease her relationship with Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. During the class dinner, Meng Shi strongly recommended going to Tanggua's restaurant. In fact, she had a selfish motive. She wanted to take this opportunity to let Jiang Juxiang and Tanggua meet. Wen Ran naturally supported Meng Shi. With Wen Ran's support, many students also supported him. Therefore, the class dinner at the end of the first year of high school was set at Tang Tailin's restaurant. After the matter was settled, Meng Shi called Jiang Juxiang. Jiang Juxiang rushed to the restaurant and told Tang Tailin the news. Both of them were looking forward to seeing Tanggua go to the restaurant. For the sake of Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin, she really won't let go of any chance. Tanggua could no longer use words to describe what kind of person Meng Shi was. Chapter 4603. On the day of the class gathering, Meng Shi stayed by Tanggua's side the whole time. When they reached the restaurant, she paid special attention to Tanggua's expression. When she found that there was no change in Tanggua's expression, she heaved a sigh of relief. The class slowly walked into the restaurant. Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin stood in the most conspicuous place. Because they were classmates in the same class, they didn't ask for a private room. They booked the dining table in the hall. The students chose a table and sat down. When Jiang Juxiang looked at Tanggua, her eyes couldn't help but turn red and she secretly wiped her tears. When Meng Shi saw Jiang Juxiang, she felt a lot of sympathy for her. This time, Tangua deliberately showed her sympathy. She glanced at Jiang Juxiang, who was wiping her tears, and then looked away. Meng Shi, who observed the scene, felt that the relationship between Jiang Juxiang and Tangua should be eased. When Zhang Xingyue saw Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin, she felt that the situation was a little strange. When she saw that Tangua didn't have any intention of losing her temper, she didn't say anything. She just diverted a little attention to Tangua. She was not very satisfied with Meng Shi. She had been wondering why Meng Shi was so enthusiastic about recommending a restaurant. Meng Shi's family conditions weren't very good, so it was impossible for her to eat at restaurants often. When she saw Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin, she understood. She felt that Tangua was quite cultured. If it were her, she might have turned around and left. However, she didn't say anything. Maybe the relationship between Tangua and Jiang Juxiang wasn't that bad. Every time Jiang Juxiang served the dishes, she would go to Tangua's side and put some delicious food in front of Tangua. Tangua looked at the dishes one by one. They really fit her taste. Meng Shi must have told Jiang Juxiang a lot about them. She still remembered that when she was young, Jiang Juxiang would scold her twice if she ate 2 more pieces of meat. Now she knew what she liked to eat. She also raised Yang Yuxuan like a pig. Every meal was very nutritious. In fact, it was not good for the body at all. It might even cause excessive obesity. For some things, as long as one paid a little attention, one would be able to know a person's preferences. Jiang Juxiang didn't try to understand Yang Yuxuan's preferences. She thought that as long as she ate good food, it was good for a pregnant woman. She even interrupted Yang Yuxuan and didn't let Yang Yuxuan eat what she liked. She was simply arrogant and didn't care about Yang Yuxuan. She felt that Yang Yuxuan was not good to her precious grandson because she ate less. It could be seen how selfish she was. Her selfishness was only for outsiders, like her daughter and son. She couldn't wait to give them the best. Even if she favored boys over girls, she actually treated her daughter well. Because she knew that it was impossible for her to have a grandson, she wanted to keep her bloodline. At the end of the day, it was just that her hopes had been dashed and she had chosen to give up. In fact, she did not really care about her granddaughter at all. The older generation was particular about having a descendant. Jiang Juxiang thought that even if she was a girl, she was very smart. It was impossible for Tang Tailin to get married and have children. She was the best choice, that was all. Eat more. Jiang Juxiang whispered to Tangua. Her face was full of anticipation and joy. Many students in the class knew that Jiang Juxiang and Tangua's grandmother, but they didn't know the specifics. This time, Tangua didn't disappoint Jiang Juxiang. Instead, she agreed. Okay. This time, Jiang Juxiang was so happy that she was about to cry. She even went to pull Tang Tailin. Tang Tailin also came over and poured a drink for Tangua. Tangua accepted it. Chapter 4604. She heard that when Lang had been pestering Tang Tailin. She didn't know how long Tang Tailin could last. He should be able to understand how much she hated his past actions, right? System, host, you're so bad. Are you back from training your underlings? Yes. Those systems are really stupid. They're so stupid, but they even have serial numbers. It's really infuriating. Are you jealous that they have serial numbers again? I'm not happy. Why do those stupid systems have serial numbers? I don't know when the boss of the Space-Time Bureau will come back. There's still no news. Otherwise, he would definitely send me a serial number. The system said angrily. The Space-Time Bureau boss's signal has completely disappeared. I don't know which great universe he ran to. Did the Space-Time Bureau think of a way to find his whereabouts? They've already taken many measures. This time, they've created a batch of systems. They plan to send them to other great universes and great worlds to look for people. When there's news, they'll naturally send news back. These systems are really lucky. They just came out of the factory. They're like weak chickens, but they still have serial numbers. Tangua felt that the system's jealousy was about to overflow. Go find 111,222 to play games and vent your anger. It's easy to have problems if you're not happy. The system hummed and left. Tangua didn't need it for the time being. He wanted to play games and kill everyone. Because there was no serial number, he couldn't buy things from the system home. Fortunately, he had a group of underlings who would buy things for him. During this class meal, the relationship between Tang Guo and Jiang Juxiang improved. Meng Shi felt that there was a chance, so every time he went to a meal, he would ask Tang Guo to come. Seeing that Tang Guo didn't refuse, he was even happier. However, Tang Guo only went to eat and said a few words to Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. She didn't want to go any further. The two of them were very patient and planned to take their time. Wen Lang didn't stay idle either. He looked for opportunities to appear in front of Tang Tailin, which made Tang Tailin waver. Yang Yuxuan knew about Tang Guo's movements and talked to her. "Guo, do you want to acknowledge your grandmother and father?" It would be a lie to say that she wasn't sad. Even though Yang Yuxuan had achieved a lot, she still couldn't forget those 6 years of darkness. If it weren't for her sensible daughter comforting her, she might have really chosen to jump out of the window. She still hated Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin. The harm they had caused her could never be erased in this lifetime. However, the two of them were Tang Guo's biological grandmother and biological father. If Tang Guo really wanted to acknowledge them, she couldn't stop her. She just felt a little sad. Tang Guo grabbed Yang Yuxuan's hand. Of course, it was impossible for her to recognize the two people, but she had her own purpose. Yang Yuxuan was upset, but she still had to endure it and not say anything. She was indeed a good mother. If it were another person, they might not be able to endure it if their daughter did this. "Guo, don't worry. In terms of blood relations, they are indeed your grandmother and father. This is an inseparable fact. Mom doesn't blame you." Yang Yuxuan's eyes were red, but she still desperately held back. Tang Guo handed her a tissue. "Mom, what are you thinking about? How can I really acknowledge them?" Yang Yuxuan was stunned, and the tears in her eyes even forgot to fall. Tang Guo wiped her tears. "I have my own thoughts." Recently, a man has been pestering Tang Tailin. I want to see how much he wants to acknowledge me as his daughter. Yang Yuxuan's depressed mood was swept away. Is it Wen Lang? She naturally knew that the person who pestered Tang Tailin back then was Wen Lang. I don't know if that old lady can accept her son being entangled with that man again. Yang Yuxuan heard her daughter's casual tone and finally understood that her daughter had no intention of forgiving them at all. "Guo, I still don't want you to have too much hatred in your heart." Of course, she really didn't want her daughter to acknowledge those two people. They didn't really care about her daughter at all. "It's because they're too annoying," Tang Guo said. "They insist on coming to me. If Guo doesn't like them, I'll think of a way for you," Yang Yuxuan said domineeringly. "I can make them unable to survive in this place." The Apex. Chapter 4605. Tang Guo refused Yang Yuxuan's help and said that if she needed Yang Yuxuan's help in the future, she would not hesitate to ask. Yang Yuxuan also felt that the two of them were just a little noisy and not a big trouble. After all, they were related to Tang Guo by blood. If they were too ruthless, it would easily have a bad influence on Tang Guo. So, she listened to Tang Guo and did not intend to intervene. Yang Yuxuan was still worried. She arranged for people to keep an eye on Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin's movements. Seeing that they did not go to school to disturb Tang Guo, she left them alone. She was not interested in Tang Tailin and Wen Lang's affairs. Her current interest was to expand the company. Wen Lang and Tang Tailin had not made any progress, which made Meng Shi anxious. Tang Guo was often dragged by Meng Shi to Tang Tailin's restaurant for dinner. When they arrived at the restaurant, Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin would always be there. What was more coincidental was that Wen Lang was basically there. Wen Lang appeared in front of her openly as Wen Rant's father and did not hide his relationship with Tang Tailin at all. Of course, he was so obvious that Tang Guo would definitely not be nice to him. Wen Lang was disliked by Tang Guo and even gave him a bad look, which made Tang Tailin a little unhappy. Jiang Juxiang did not recognize that Wen Lang was the person in the video. At that time, the main focus was on Tang Tailin. She did not pay attention to that man at all. Even if she did, it had been more than 10 years since that incident. At that time, it was just a hurried glance. Now, she had already forgotten what he looked like. When Lang appeared as Wen Ran's father, Jiang Juxiang thought that he was trying to repair his relationship with Wen Ran. Because Meng Shi told her that Wen Ran and Wen Lang had some misunderstandings, and now their relationship was much better. Jiang Juxiang was not at the restaurant often. Only when Tangua was going to the restaurant for dinner, would Meng Shi inform her and she would rush over from home. The more she acted like this, the more Meng Shi thought that she was pitiful. Wen Lang seemed to be unable to bear it. Tang Tailin had always been so distant to him. He would talk to Tang Tailin whenever he had the chance. It's been so long. Why don't you try? Coincidentally, every time when Lang and Tang Tailin talked, there was a high chance that Meng Shi would bump into them, so she could only eavesdrop from the side. Every time the two of them talked, Tang Tailin would smoke. I told you, there's really no need. Is it because of your daughter? When Lang asked the question that came to his mind. She seems to have realized something. Her attitude towards me is not very good. I don't think she wants us to be together. That's part of it, Tang Tailin replied. In fact, the reason why he did not choose to be with Wen Lang was because of Tangua. I don't want to mess up my life anymore. My mother wants to be closer to her daughter now to make up for her childhood regrets. If I continue to pester you, she will definitely throw a tantrum and jump off a building. Other than my mother, I don't want to be entangled with you anymore. I feel like there's no point in being entangled with you. Back then, I mustered up the courage to tell my mother that I fell in love with a man and wanted to be with him. I had already planned to give up everything, leave this place, and fight with you. In the future, my mother would agree. Tang Tailin smiled. But I didn't expect that the first person to spread the news of marriage would be you. When I saw my mother throwing a tantrum, I didn't want to make a fuss, so I agreed to go on a blind date, get married, and have children. I did things that I hated and couldn't stand, but I had to do. The Apex. Chapter 4606. When Lang said, I'm sorry. It's all in the past. It's not that important. If I were in your position, I might have made the same choice. Tang Tailin looked relieved. So let's not pester each other. It's been more than 10 years since we last pestered each other. That time, we both had a lot of trouble. This means that we're not suitable for each other. It's different this time. I'm fully prepared. No one can break me up. Tailin, the people in the One Corporation don't dare to oppose me. I've already taken control of the One Corporation. As long as you agree, I can take you directly to the One Corporation. Tang Tailin paused. Why do you want to take me to the One Corporation? To announce to others that I'm your most important lover? Wen Lang wanted to say something, but Tang Tailin pushed him away. Don't say it. It's not good to be seen. Tang Tailin turned and left. Wen Lang didn't chase after him. He knew that unless Tang Tailin agreed, it was useless no matter what he said. He could be so patient because firstly, he let Tang Tailin down. Secondly, he knew that Tang Tailin still loved him. Thirdly, Tang Tailin didn't seem to want to find another lover. Wen Lang was about to leave when he bumped into Meng Shi. Both of them were a little embarrassed. Before Wen Lang said anything, Meng Shi said, Uncle Wen, I know why Uncle Tang doesn't want to agree. It sounds like you two like each other very much. There must be a lot of misunderstandings that you can't be together. Wen Lang had originally planned to leave. It was awkward to be bumped into. It was not something to be ashamed of. Hearing Meng Shi's words, he asked with interest, why? You two love each other so much. The reason why Uncle Tang doesn't want to pester you is not because he doesn't like you. It's because he feels that there won't be a result if he continues to pester you. Wen Lang was puzzled. What result? What result can there be? Of course, it's the result of an open relationship. Uncle Tang compromised his family. He got married on a blind date and had a child. There was no love between the husband and wife. Uncle Wen likes Uncle Tang so much. I think it's the same. A family like yours is mostly a business marriage. It's impossible for there to be any love. I've heard Wen Ran talk about his mother before. He often sees different men around her. Forgive me for being disrespectful, but your marriage seems to be in name only. It seems that after completing Wen Ran's mission, you've gone your separate ways. Wen Lang was not angry. Perhaps it was because Meng Shi was able to bring his son back, so he had a filter for her. He didn't feel that her words were disrespectful. Instead, he thought that she was very bold and straightforward. Moreover, he also hoped that her words would be of some use to him. I accidentally overheard some words just now and found out that Uncle Wen is now in power. Meng Shi paused for a moment. Seeing that Wen Lang was not angry, he continued, if Uncle Wen wants to be with Uncle Tang, you may have to sacrifice the current business marriage. Even if our country can't get a marriage certificate, we have to give him an open and above-board identity. Let everyone know that this is your lover, your one and only, not your lover. Wen Lang pondered for a moment before regaining his senses. Seeing Meng Shi's expectant look, he smiled and said, you're right. Every time we try, there's no result. In the past, we couldn't get a result, but it's different now. I'll settle this matter and return to being single as soon as possible. By then, Talon probably won't reject me anymore. However, when Lang recalled how badly Tangua treated him, Tangua might object to this. I'll need your help to persuade her. Chapter 4607. That's not a problem. Tangua, I'll do the work. You both like each other. It's true love. No one can stop you from finding the person you like and being with the person you like, Meng Shi said quickly. As far as she knew, Tang Tailin had been single ever since he divorced Tangua's mother. He was already middle-aged. If he could find someone he liked to be with, Tangua would not object. As for Wen Ran, Meng Shi was not too worried about this. Wen Ran had long realized that the relationship between the two was not ordinary. Since she did not object, it meant that she acquiesced. After agreeing to this matter, Meng Shi thought of a way to persuade Tangua. She planned to ask Tangua indirectly why she was not satisfied with Wen Lang. Tangua said casually, I don't like him. I feel uncomfortable just looking at him. Actually, Uncle Wen is quite a good person. Do you have any misunderstandings about him? Meng Shi asked again. Tangua shook her head. There's no misunderstanding. Because everything Wen Lang did was true, there was no misunderstanding. However, to Meng Shi, Tangua just did not have a good impression of Wen Lang. She did not hate him because he did something. Then Meng Shi went straight to the point. Have you noticed that there's something between Uncle Wen and Uncle Tang? Tangua narrowed her eyes. Was she so impatient? What's the situation? That's the situation. Meng Shi lowered his voice. I accidentally overheard their conversation before. It turns out that they were lovers when they were in university. Later, they were forced to separate because of family pressure. After so many years, it can be considered fate to be able to meet again. Uncle Tang is now single. Uncle Wen and his wife also got married for business. They don't have any feelings for each other. It's said that his wife often keeps young men as her mistress. Because of this, Wen Ran doesn't like his mother very much. Now, Uncle Wen may be planning to end this partnership with his wife. He probably wants to be with Uncle Tang. Meng Shi sighed. After so many years, it was rare that they still had each other in their hearts. They were willing to work hard for the future. Her eyes were full of gratitude. When she came back to her senses, she realized that Tangua's expression was very ugly. Tangua, don't you want them to be together? Uncle Tang has been single for so long. Now that he's finally met someone he likes, it's not easy for him. Tangua sneered. So, I have to support him with both hands and bless him? Meng Shi wanted to say that one shouldn't be so selfish. It wasn't easy for Tang Tailin and Wen Lang. But when she saw Tangua's sneer, she suddenly didn't dare to say it out loud. Forget it, forget it. Let's not talk about this. It's best that you don't mention this in front of me. How he is and who he wants to be with is none of my business. However, if you want my support and blessings, you're dreaming. Tangua glanced at Meng Shi coldly. If they really want to be together, I will never go to that restaurant again. If you treat me as your friend, then don't interact with those two people in the future. Meng Shi looked at Tangua's back in confusion. He didn't know what he had done wrong again. Tangua's reason for getting angry was getting stranger and stranger. Zhang Xingyue was speechless when she heard the whole story. Meng Shi, do you really care about Tangua as a friend? If you do, don't mention this in front of her in the future. Meng Shi felt wronged. I think Uncle Wen and Uncle Tang are a good match. Moreover, the adults' feelings for each other haven't disappeared after so many years. It's really not easy for them to be together again. I didn't expect Tangguo to be so disgusted. The summit. Chapter 4608. Zhang Xingyue didn't say anything more. She admired Tangguo's good temper. She didn't fall out with Meng Shi after so many times. Tangguo really didn't go to the restaurant. Jiang Juxiang also asked Meng Shi what was going on. Meng Shi knew that Jiang Juxiang was very opposed to Tangguo liking men, so he didn't tell the truth. He just said that Tangguo was busy recently. Tang Tailin actually didn't care so much about Tangguo. Most of the time, it was Jiang Juxiang who took him to the restaurant. He felt that it was enough to maintain the current relationship. It was impossible for the father and daughter to be close, even if he really wanted to have a descendant. However, he couldn't be close to her. Wen Lang often sent him some small gifts recently, but he didn't come in person. Wen Lang said before that he had to deal with something and would come back to find him when he was done. Tang Tailin didn't care and still didn't throw away Wen Lang's small gifts. He heard the news of Wen Lang again. He saw it on the news that there was some turmoil in Wen Group and Su Group. The reason was that Wen Lang and Su Yi divorced. For this reason, Wen Group seemed to give up some of its interests. Tang Tailin was very shocked. His heart was pounding, and he felt that this shouldn't be Wen Lang's style. In fact, Wen Lang had long wanted to get rid of the relationship with Su Group. Now Su Group was no longer the Su Group of more than 10 years ago. Su Group had been going downhill for so many years. Not only could it not help Wen Group, but it also always dragged Wen Group down. This disconnection was something he had been planning for a long time. Su Group was really greedy. In the end, he bargained and sacrificed some power that he could afford. In this way, Wen Lang became single again very smoothly. When he came to Tang Tailin again, he felt much stronger. When Meng Shi knew about this, he couldn't help but be moved by the relationship between the two. Tang Tailin couldn't refuse Wen Lang, who divorced for him. The two of them went from vague ambiguity to entanglement now. The impulse when they were young appeared in them again. Their relationship began to become hot. Meng Shi was very happy to see the two of them together. Wen Ran didn't say anything. Instead, he worked harder to learn how to manage the company. From the incident between Wen Lang and Tang Tailin, he was inspired. If he wanted to live comfortably with the person he liked, he had to become powerful. After much persuasion, Meng Shi finally dragged Tangguo to a restaurant for a meal. This time, she did not inform Jiang Juxiang because this meal was to celebrate Wen Lang and Tang Tailin. Tang Tailin and Wen Lang had told her not to tell Jiang Juxiang for the time being. She had always been against it. When Tangguo appeared in the private room, she found Wen Lang and Tang Tailin sitting together. The two of them behaved rather intimately. At first, she didn't act up. When Wen Lang stood up and expressed that Meng Shi had played an important role in him getting back together with Tangguo, Tangguo's expressions suddenly changed. Meng Shi was shocked when he saw it. Tangguo looked at Wen Lang and Tang Tailin coldly. "You two are officially together?" Tang Tailin and Wen Lang looked at each other and replied, "Yes, I hope you can understand. You two are together. Why did you pull me over to celebrate? Do you want me to understand? Do you want me to support you and help you persuade the old lady?" Tang Tailin and Wen Lang had this plan. As long as Tangguo accepted them, with her help, Jiang Juxiang would be more likely to accept them. Chapter 4609. Tangguo was sitting closer to them. She picked up a drink and splashed it on their faces. Shameless. After saying that, she stood up. "I won't come to this place again in the future." She glanced at Tang Tailin coldly. "And I will never acknowledge you as my father." Tangguo looked at Meng Shi again. "And you, let's break off our friendship. You're not my friend anymore." The change happened too quickly. No one expected such a reaction. Tangguo took out her phone and called the chauffeur as she walked, asking him to pick her up. Tang Tailin and Wen Lang's expressions were ugly. It was too embarrassing to be splashed with water in public. Tang Tailin's tone became sharper. "What are you trying to do? Haven't your grandmother and I compromised enough for you already? Now you want to care who I'm with?" Why are you doing this if you're not satisfied? Tang was stopped in her tracks. Seeing Tang Tailin's self-righteous look, she was so angry that she laughed. She walked back with a cold gaze. I really don't know if your conscience hurts when you say these words. No, you don't have a conscience, do you? Do you really think I don't know anything? When my mother went on a blind date with you, she didn't know that you had someone else in your heart, let alone that you were a man. You and the old lady hid the truth of this matter. I think any woman with a normal mind would not marry someone like you. After the marriage scam, you lied to my mother to have a child because you didn't want to stop the bloodline. Later, my mother gave birth to me. I was a girl, and the old lady despised me. She felt that I was at a disadvantage when I ate a piece of meat. Now that you can't have a grandson, you want to acknowledge me? And you treated my mother as a tool. You didn't accompany her for a prenatal checkup. In order not to meet her, you came home after midnight every day after she was pregnant. You've never bought me a toy, hugged me, or even talked to me. Even when you got married, you were avoiding it and put all the pressure on my mother. If this isn't a marriage scam, then what is? The second day after my mother was pregnant, wasn't it ridiculous? Because the old lady wanted a grandson, you endured the discomfort and got close to my mother. You got her pregnant, but in the end, you still didn't care. Years of stress, misfortune, and emotional abuse caused my mother to fall ill and almost die. When my mother was pregnant with my younger sister, you had an affair with this man. Someone even made a movie about it. Later, you two got divorced. Tangua's words made Tang Tailin feel embarrassed and speechless. He really didn't know that Tangua was so clear about these things. I have a good memory, Tangua added. Now, you actually have the face to ask for my blessings in front of me. Scumbags who cheat in marriage, have some shame. You're not my father. My father died a long time ago. You. Tang Tailin was really angry. He reached out to hit Tangua. Tangua grabbed his hand and kicked his knee, tripping him to the ground. Tang Tailin cried out in pain. Seeing this, Wen Lang wanted to come over to help, but Tangua punched him. Wen Lang was punched in the face. Wen Ran saw the situation and also went to help. After all, Wen Lang was his father. Tangua turned around and glanced at him. It's best if you don't come over. This is a grudge between me and them. Wen Ran was stunned for a moment because what Tangua said just now was indeed that these two people were unreasonable. In that instant, Tangua had already tripped Wen Lang. The two men were beaten up by a little girl and lay on the ground screaming. Wen Ran reacted and realized that if he went up, the result would be the same. Meng Shi was shocked. He reacted and wanted to pull Tangua, but Tangua pushed him away. Get lost. Tangua looked at everyone's sorry state and found it very funny. She had been waiting impatiently for this day because these two people were too slow. She picked up a bottle of drink on the table and poured it all on their faces. Didn't you want blessings? I'll bless you now. Lock yourself up for the rest of your lives and don't harm others. Chapter 46:10. Wen Ran helped stop her. Meng Shi tugged at Wen Ran, looking flustered. He didn't know what to do. Wen Ran shook his head. From her point of view, there's nothing wrong with it. His parents had their own way of doing things. They should have already discussed it when they first got married. If his mother was like Tangua's mother, he would probably be angrier than Tangua. She didn't simply pour drinks on their heads. Instead, she smashed wine bottles on their heads. Smashed them to death. Wen Ran's reaction was a little out of Tangua's expectations. That's right. Now that she had made everything clear to everyone was very clear about it. Just listening to it made them feel very angry. Even Meng Shi felt that Tang Tailin had gone overboard with Yang Yuxuan. There was no way to clear his name. Moreover, because of her, many details had changed. It was impossible to be one-sided like in the original plot. First of all, she had saved Yang Yuxuan. Many people knew about the previous incident. The two of them couldn't refute it. Moreover, the original owner had lost her mother who loved her when she was young. She had been neglected by Jiang Juxiang and Tang Tailin for many years. She had long been mentally ill. Naturally, her personality wasn't that likable. It was clearly something that she was in the right, but because of her personality, She would do unreasonable things. Tangwa poured 2 bottles of drinks and finally felt better. Seeing that when Ran didn't stop her and instead stopped Meng Shi, who wanted to come over, she grabbed her bag and put it on her shoulder. Her gaze fell on Meng Shi's face. "Tangwa, you're too much." Before Tangwa could speak, Meng Shi spoke first. "No matter what, Uncle Tang is your father. You, a father who had sex with another man when my mother was pregnant? A father who came home after midnight every day? A father who never accompanied my mother for her prenatal checkup? A father who didn't even speak to my mother for a year? Or a father who didn't care about my existence at all?" Tangwa's continuous questions made Meng Shi a little confused. Although he couldn't answer these questions, he still felt that Tang Tailin and Wen Lang were a little miserable. After all, some things were in the past. Actually, Uncle Tang was forced to do it. He was pressured, so he had no choice but to. "Will he die if he doesn't get married?" Tangwa asked. "If he doesn't get married and doesn't lie about getting married, will he die?" He just couldn't bear the pressure and compromised. "Uncle Tang has some difficulties. Back then, Grandma Jiang threatened to kill herself, so," Meng Shi said weakly. She found that Tang Tang's expression was cold and sarcastic. She had never seen such a side of Tangwa before. He was afraid that his mother would jump to her death, so he wanted to trick an innocent woman? "Is that what you mean?" Tangwa asked with a smile. Was there something wrong with this person's brain? What difficulties? In this world, taking the initiative to harm innocent people, all difficulties were bullshit. Tang Tailin was innocent, but so were the others? If you're so capable, you can also threaten him with death. Tangwa turned around and glanced at Tang Tailin, who was lying on the ground in a sorry state. "Why didn't you?" "All right, let's not interact with each other in the future. I'm afraid that I won't be able to resist splashing water on you every time I see you." Tangwa saw that Meng Shi wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she said, "Human sorrow and joy are indeed not connected. You haven't experienced such things, so you'll never understand the anger in my heart. You also won't know how disgusting your actions are." The Apex. Chapter 46:11. System. The main point is that the host is paving the way for what will happen in the future. After some things happen in the future, Meng Shi should recall this sentence and finally understand why. At this moment, the driver's voice came from outside. "Mississippi." The driver glanced at the scene inside. There was some shock in his eyes, but he still said, "Miss, do you want to go home?" Tangwa, "Yes. Everyone here better not appear in front of me or talk to me in the future." Tangwa looked at Meng Shi. "Especially you." Meng Shi was shocked and took a few steps back. When Ran quickly protected her. "Meng Shi doesn't know." "What a good don't know." Tangwa walked outside. "Now you know." When Ran subconsciously replied, "I'll keep an eye on Meng Shi. She won't disturb you again in the future." Meng Shi was a little surprised by Wen Ran's words. She didn't understand why he would speak up for Tangwa at this time. Wen Ran. After Tangwa left, Meng Shi raised her voice. "Why didn't you stop her just now?" After Meng Shi asked, she didn't wait for Wen Ran to answer. She quickly went to help Wen Lang and Tang Tailin and asked how they were doing. Anyway, she felt that although the two of them had made mistakes, many things were in the past. The matter between Tang Tailin and Yang Yuxuan was a grudge between the previous generation. No matter what, Tangwa was Tang Tailin's daughter. They were biological father and daughter. It was a little inappropriate for her to push Tang Tailin and pour a drink on his head. Meng Shi felt a little helpless when she thought of Tangwa's harsh words, telling everyone here not to appear in front of her. When Ran didn't say anything, he silently went over to help Wen Lang up. He carefully observed Wen Lang and Tang Tailin's expressions. There was resentment, and there was also a bit of anger from being exposed. This made his heart sink. What Tangwa said should be true. In fact, when Tangwa said it, he believed it. As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. He knew what kind of person his father was. As for Tang Tailin, he didn't know much about him. However, she shouldn't be lying because when she said those words, the two of them didn't refute her except for anger and shame. If he didn't refute, it was more or less a tacit agreement. If what she said was true, then he really didn't feel that Tangwa's actions were strange at all. What do you guys plan to do? In the bathroom, when Ran asked Wen Lang, after what happened today, can you still be together with him? Wen Lang was also angry. He didn't expect that Tangwa would do such a thing. It wasn't easy for us to get to where we are today. It wasn't easy for your Uncle Tang to promise me. Today, it was ruined by that girl. Is what she said true? Wen Lang didn't answer. Instead, he said, you don't have to worry about this. I'll handle it. Then it must be true. When Ran felt a little complicated. He actually didn't like this kind of behavior. However, he didn't say anything. He didn't have the strength to interfere with Wen Lang's matters. Comfort Xiao Shi well. She is a kind girl. Wen Ran, I know. He knew that Meng Shi's character was relatively simple, so he really didn't have bad intentions in doing these things. Today's events had probably frightened her. Because of what Tangwa did, the matter of Tang Tailin and Wen Lang getting back together was put on hold again. This time, Wen Lang was really angry. He planned to go back and start investigating Yang Yuxuan's company. He had to make her pay the price. Peak. Chapter 46:12. Missy, what happened just now? The driver had been driving Tangwa for more than 10 years, but this was the first time he had seen Tangwa so angry. He was a little worried. I beat up 2 shameless people. Tangwa regained her smile. It's nothing. They're no match for me. The driver knew that Tangwa had learned martial arts before. After all, a Missy had to learn a little bit of everything. He just didn't expect her to be so powerful. Tangwa learned those miscellaneous things so that she could have a source for her skills. Everyone knew that she was smart, so they wouldn't have any doubts. The driver didn't ask any more questions and drove home seriously. Tangwa returned home and waited for Yang Yuxuan to come back. She told Yang Yuxuan what had happened today. After hearing it, Yang Yuxuan couldn't hold back her expression. Those 2 men are really shameless. Tang Tailin actually dared to ask for your blessing? The reason why Yang Yuxuan didn't make a fuss about Tang Tailin's video was mainly because of her 2 daughters. If it were to be made known, her 2 daughters would be looked down upon. It wasn't because she wanted to let Tang Tailin go. Guogua, what's wrong with your classmate Meng Shi? How did she manage to deceive you? Listen to me. It's better not to interact with such a friend in the future. Am I that stupid in your eyes? Tangwa said with a smile. I've never brought her back. She has already violated my taboo, so I don't plan to bring her back. If you want to bring her back, bring Zhang Xingyue, who has old cured meat at home. Her old cured meat is very delicious. I've let you try it before. When Yang Ji heard about old cured meat, she was immediately attracted. She ran over and asked, Sister, did Sister Zhang give you old cured meat again? Not yet. She should give it to me at the end of the semester. I've been tutoring her recently, so her grades have improved a lot. Tangwa replied casually. She should be too embarrassed to not give it to me. Yang Yuxuan was stunned. Then she smiled. That was right. Her daughter was much smarter and more decisive than her. Back then, her daughter had guided her out of the haze step by step. That was why she had the life she had now. Guogua has always been so powerful. Mom even said that she would protect you. Mom, you should pay more attention to the company these days. Wen Lang is a ruthless person. Today, I exposed their scandal in public and poured 2 bottles of drinks on them. He must be very angry. Tang Tailin probably didn't have much hope for me either. Wen Lang won't dare to do anything on the surface, but he'll definitely deal with your company in secret. Yang Yuxuan became serious. Okay, I'll prepare it. She also wanted to compete with the Wen Corporation. Tangwa thought of Zheng Chen, who worked under Yang Yuxuan. Zheng Chen didn't leave Tang Tailin's restaurant because Tang Tailin didn't want Wen Lang to misunderstand, so he fired her directly. Zheng Chen had already completed her mission and had agreed to travel the world with an Yuan in the future. The 2 paper people also knew that if they wanted to have fun traveling around the world, they would need a lot of money. Under Tangwa's suggestion, Zheng Chen started working with Yang Yuxuan when she started her business. She had always been Yang Yuxuan's right-hand woman. With Zheng Chen's help, Yang Yuxuan would destroy the Wen Corporation sooner or later. Tangwa didn't worry about it. In the evening, Tangua's mobile phone rang. It was Meng Shi's number. She directly pulled out the phone card and planned to change a new one when she was free. Meng Shi called again and heard that the phone was turned off. He was a little discouraged. The next day, when Tangua arrived at the school, Meng Shi had already been waiting at the school gate. Seeing Tangua appear, he waved his hand to call Tangua. Tangua frowned and walked quickly into the school gate. She heard Meng Shi's noisy voice. Along the way, they attracted many people's attention. Tangua and Meng Shi were both influential people on campus. Seeing that Meng Shi was anxious and Tangua was indifferent, many people were guessing what was going on. Chapter 46:13. In less than half a day, many people were discussing this matter. As soon as class ended, Meng Shi leaned in front of Tangua. Zhang Xingyue already knew the whole story of Tangua and Meng Shi's falling out last night. Seeing that Meng Shi was unwilling to give up and tried to explain herself, she was a little impatient. She pulled Meng Shi and said, "You'll affect Tangua's studies." Meng Shi pursed her lips. "I really didn't do it on purpose. I won't do such a thing in the future." "Then what do you want?" Zhang Xingyue asked. "To return to the past? Tangua has tolerated you for a long time. You're the reason why things have come to this point. If you continue to pester her for no reason, she has many ways to make you unable to see her." Tangua didn't have so much patience now. She had played her role and didn't need to maintain a good relationship with Meng Shi. Tangua patted Meng Shi, which made Meng Shi happy. However, before she could finish being happy, she heard Tangua whispering in her ear, "Do you want to see the short videos they made when my mother was pregnant? There are many of them without clothes. Aren't you interested in these? This time, it's a real-life version." After saying that, Tangua even revealed a mischievous smile. Seeing Meng Shi's stunned and incredulous gaze, she felt comfortable. Zhang Xingyue was also a little stunned. She always felt that the gloating and somewhat evil Tangua was the real Tangua. She hurriedly shook her head. Was she under too much pressure from studying recently? Why don't I not do the exercises this afternoon and read some ancient poems to relax? Meng Shi didn't talk to Tangua anymore, but Tangua asked the system to send a folder to Wenran. In the next few days, every time Meng Shi wanted to look for Tangua, she was stopped by Wenran. Because of this, the two of them even quarreled. However, they were the male and female leads after all. Their relationship was deeper and they didn't fall out. Perhaps it was because of the falling out with Tangua, many girls distanced themselves from Meng Shi. As for those girls who didn't like Meng Shi, they were even happier when they bullied her. In the past, they had to give face to Tangua. Right now, there was only Wenran. Whatever they did, Wenran really couldn't care less. Many times, when Tangua passed by, she didn't even look at Meng Shi who was being bullied. Seeing this, the girls finally understood that Tangua really didn't care about Meng Shi. Seeing Tangua's indifference, Meng Shi finally stopped approaching Tangua. On the weekend, Xie Fan, who was studying at a university somewhere far away, flew back in a hurry and went straight to Tangua's house. He rushed to her door and knocked. Early in the morning, he didn't wake up Tangua, but Yang Ji, who was reading next door, woke up. Yang Ji saw Xie Fan and said, "Brother Xie Fan, did you just get off the plane?" Xie Fan stared at the door of Tangua's room. He did not move at all, as if he wanted to stare a flower out of the door. He took out his phone and saw that it was only 8 o'clock. He slapped his head in frustration. "It's only 8 o'clock. Yes, come back at 10 o'clock. Fortunately, you didn't wake my sister up. It's not easy for her to sleep in on the weekend." Yang Ji's tone was unfriendly. "Why don't you go downstairs and wait? What do you want to eat? Ask someone to make it. We all know each other, so I won't bother you." "Okay." Xie Fan didn't mind. Tangua was the boss here. He had long been used to it. He turned around and went downstairs and asked for a glass of milk. Yang Ji glanced downstairs and went back to her room to read. Her mother had arranged many classes for her recently. They were all business cases written by Uncle Zeng Chen. She had to read them all. She looked at Tangua's room enviously. As expected, she wasn't smart enough. That was why she had to study from morning to night, unlike her extremely smart sister who could learn anything at a glance and sleep in as much as she wanted. Mortals really couldn't compare to geniuses. Chapter 46:14. At 10 o'clock, Tangwa woke up. The system told her that Xie Fan had arrived and had been waiting for 2 hours. She changed her clothes and went downstairs. She found Xie Fan sitting on the sofa, looking very serious, like an old monk in meditation. "You're awake." Xie Fan hurriedly ran to her. His second question was, "Why didn't you tell me that you changed your phone number?" Tangwa was a little sleepy. She rubbed her eyes and thought about what he said just now. Maybe she felt that she had almost done everything and could relax, so she relaxed and forgot about it. It was also because they usually used social media to communicate that Xie Fan didn't notice in time. Still not awake? Xie Fan took the hot towel from the helper and gently covered her eyes. Tangwa came back to her senses. "I forgot." Xie Fan pursed his lips. "Forgot?" She dismissed him with just these 2 words. "System, I feel wronged, but I won't say it." "Huh. I didn't tell the others either." Tangwa added. She had indeed forgotten about it. Anyway, she didn't usually call, and they usually chatted on social media. Xie Fan's wronged eyes retracted. She didn't tell him? Oh, that's okay. Let's have breakfast first. Xie Fan naturally grabbed Tangwa's hand and led her down. This was a completely instinctive action. After being trained by his mother when he was young, he was used to it. As long as Tangwa was anywhere, he would want to hold her hand. "System, young man, are you sure you're used to it after being trained by your mother?" Tangwa chewed on the bread and told Xie Fan what happened that day. Xie Fan frowned and listened to the whole story. In the end, he added, "Why didn't you bring them along?" "I can do it alone?" Tangwa said, "They're no match for me even if they work together." Xie Fan was silent. He had fought with Tangwa before. Back then, he went to the martial arts class first, and Tangwa went later. At that time, they were still young. He thought that except for height, there was at least one thing that he was better than Tangwa in and could teach her how to be a good person. He didn't expect that he would be the one who was beaten up every time. Although it was not so miserable later and they often tied, he knew that she had been merciful to him among the students in the class. Therefore, he thought that his role was really to push the swing, get food, carry the bag and snacks. System? It's really miserable. I heard from my father that the One Corporation has been taking action recently. They are snatching projects from Aunt Yang's company? Xie Fan changed the topic. My dad will take care of Aunt Yang. There won't be any problems. You don't have to worry. Tangwa nodded. Yes, with Uncle Xie's help, there won't be any problems. The corners of Xie Fan's lips curled up unknowingly. He still had some use. He had a very powerful father. There's still more than a year before the college entrance examination, Xie Fan said helplessly. Do you want to take the exam in advance? He thought it was completely possible, but Tangwa didn't agree before, saying that she still had things to do. S's A's because he had a intuition zzz. Really? Xie Fan was still a little surprised. Then I'll tutor you. Do you think it's necessary? Tangwa asked. Xie Fan said, don't you? He was a little disappointed and changed the topic. I have prepared a lot of materials. If she didn't need them, they would be useless. Tangwa saw Xie Fan's disappointment and patted him on the shoulder. That's good. I don't have to organize them myself. You've helped me a lot. She would be more lovely if she was praised properly. Sure enough, the disappointment in Xie Fan's eyes disappeared and turned to joy. I'll send them to you right away. He took out his mobile phone and sent the materials to Tangwa. Let's go and play later. Tangwa said. Xie Fan said casually, okay, where to play? In the park, playing on the swing. Xie Fan, okay. This hobby had not changed for more than 10 years. What was comforting was that the person who pushed the swing had not changed either. When they arrived at the park, Tangwa sat for a while and stood up. She asked Xie Fan, do you want to sit down? Let me push you. Xie Fan's expression was distorted. It was a little inappropriate for a man to play on the swing. I saw it when I was a child. You were envious when you saw me playing on the swing. Tangwa pressed Xie Fan on the swing. I reflected on myself. I can't be so selfish. Brother Xie Fan, let me push you. Xie Fan wanted to refuse, but he didn't dare to. He had never been envious. He was willing to push the swing. It was very good. He didn't think it was a bad misunderstanding. System, it's so funny. Thought. Chapter 46:15. Have you really made up your mind? Zhang Xingyue was not surprised when she heard that Tangwa wanted to take the college entrance exam in advance. She thought that with Tangwa's current knowledge and intelligence, it was normal for her to take the college entrance exam in advance. Tangwa's sudden decision caught her off guard and made her a little reluctant. She was not worried that Tangwa would fail the exam at all. Even the teachers would take the initiative to discuss with Tangwa when they encountered some controversial questions. It was enough to prove that she was very good. I've decided. In this school, the only one that Tangwa was really reluctant to part with was Zhang Xingyue. Speaking of which, Zhang Xingyue was not very smart in class. Her IQ was only average. Zhang Xingyue was able to stay at the top of the list. In addition to her helping others with questions and skills, Zhang Xingyue was also a very hardworking person. If I pass the college entrance exam this time, you can send me any questions you have in the future. I'll reply to you when I'm free. I think I'll have more time in university and won't be as busy as in high school. It'll be easy for me to solve 2 questions. Zhang Xingyue was a little embarrassed, but she could not refuse because this was a great temptation to her. With her own ability, she could at most stay in the top 10 of the grade. With Tangwa's help, she could now stay in second place. Speaking of which, if Tangwa left, would she be able to stay in first place in the grade? Just as she was thinking about this, Tangwa said, "No matter what, I'm leaving. You have to stay in first place in the grade, right?" Zhang Xingyue instantly felt a heavy burden on her body. She looked at Tangwa's expectant expression and nodded seriously. "Okay, I'll work hard." "Did you suddenly make this decision because of Mengxi?" Zhang Xingyue hesitated for a moment and asked softly. Tangwa nodded and then shook her head. "Not entirely. It's only a small part of it. Brother Xie Fan has already mentioned to me several times that I should take the college entrance exam in advance. This time, he mentioned it again, so I might as well take the exam. There's no problem on your side. There's still more than a year. We'll see each other soon." Zhang Xingyue understood that Tangwa didn't leave not only because of Mengxi, but also because of her. This made her feel warm in her heart. "We will meet again in a year's time." Zhang Xingyue decided that she had to secure the first place. Although Tangwa had decided to take the college entrance examination, she didn't go to her senior year class. Instead, she stayed in her original class. She had already told Yang Yuxuan and Yang Ji about bringing forward the college entrance examination, and both of them were very supportive. Yang Yuxuan felt that her daughter was good in every way. She supported her in everything she did. Yang Ji felt that since her sister was so smart, she would definitely be able to get first place, even if she had only been in high school for less than 2 years. Sure enough, this was her genius sister. Tangwa had told the teacher about the college entrance examination. She did not say that she wanted to take the college entrance examination earlier. Instead, she said that she wanted to take the college entrance examination and see what level she could reach with her current level. For a student with excellent grades like Tangwa, the teacher was very willing to make things easier for her. Naturally, there were rumors that Tangwa wanted to take part in this year's college entrance examination to prove her ability. The students in the class were also very much looking forward to Tangwa's results. In the past few years, she wasn't close to her classmates, but she wasn't unfamiliar with them either. This was because she was very willing to share her learning experience with everyone. It should be said that she was very popular with the top students. The summit. Chapter 46:16. In June, on the day Tangwa took the college entrance examination, the top students who knew her came to the examination hall to send her off. When Tangwa went in, everyone comforted her that it was just a test and that she shouldn't be nervous. In fact, Tangwa wasn't nervous, but these top students were. Because of this, Xie Fan also came and waited outside with the others. Seeing that everyone was comforting Tangwa, Xie Fan stood at the side with a straight face. When the results were out, these people would know how amazing she was. After Tangwa came out, the top students served her water and didn't ask her about her condition at all. They were all very obedient. 2 days later, the top students resumed their classes, but they were all looking forward to Tangwa's results. Mengshi had always been paying attention to Tangwa's movements and knew that she was going to take the college entrance examination. Without Tangwa's care, many people who couldn't stand Mengshi were not these top students, but other people in the school. They often found trouble with Mengshi. There were several times when Tangwa didn't care about these things, which made Mengshi feel a little disappointed. Gradually, she distanced herself from Tangwa. Now, even if Tangwa didn't avoid her, Mengshi would take the initiative to avoid Tangwa. Everyone in the school knew that the two of them had fallen out. Many people were curious about why the two of them fell out. Some people even asked Zhang Xingyue about it, but Zhang Xingyue didn't know anything. They decided to investigate it secretly themselves. In fact, Tangwa's teacher really didn't care about Tangwa's college entrance examination this time. Although he predicted that her score wouldn't be low, he didn't expect her to be the provincial top scorer. This result was beyond the teacher's expectations, but it was also a good result. It made Tangwa's teacher proud. Look, their student was only in her second year of high school, but she was already the top scorer. There were all kinds of praises and interviews that followed. In any case, those top students who were familiar with Tangwa were convinced. She just went to take the test, but in the end, she was the top scorer. Wasn't it infuriating? Tangwa finished high school early and ushered in her university life. Before leaving school, she sent a copy of the information that Xie Fan had prepared for her to Zhang Xingyue and told her to study hard. During the holidays, Zhang Xingyue sent a lot of bacon to Tangwa from her hometown. With Zhang Xingyue's current grades, she had received quite a lot of scholarships from the school. The school had even waived her tuition fees. It was not a problem for her to buy some meat and let her grandmother make bacon. Her grandmother had said that Tangwa was her great benefactor. They didn't have anything to give her except for the slightly rare cured meat. After Tangwa went to college, Zhang Xingyue settled down to study. On the other hand, Mengshi had all kinds of troubles. It was not known when someone said that the reason why Tangwa took the college entrance examination in advance had something to do with Mengshi. Those people also knew about Tangwa, Jiang Juxiang, and Tang Tailin's family affairs. This was not a secret, and he could easily find out after a little investigation. Those who knew about this matter looked at Mengshi strangely. How can she be so shameless? No wonder Tangwa would rather take the college entrance examination early than stay in school. If I had such a disgusting friend, I wouldn't want to stay here either. If my situation was the same as Tangwa's, and I was set up by my good friend to reconcile with my scumbag father and my scumbag grandmother, I would be disgusted to death, okay? What's more terrifying is that Mengshi actually set up her scumbag father to be gay, and the partner is the one who cheated on her. There must be something wrong with her brain. As for the other man, they knew who he was. Tang Tailin and Wen Lang's relationship was not a secret. The summit. Chapter 46:17. Wen's company still had rivals. Besides, Wen Lang was not the only shareholder of this school. There were other shareholders. Since Wen Lang planned to rob Yang Yuxuan's project, Wen's company and Yang's company had been competing with each other. The person who released the news was probably Wen Lang's rival. Because of Wen's company, Wen Ran had less time to attend classes recently. The important courses were in the first and second year of high school. Wen Ran had a good foundation. He could review more before the college entrance examination to get a good grade. He was now busy helping Wen Lang take care of Wen's company. Wen's company was facing the biggest crisis. It should be said that there were internal and external troubles. Internally, there were shareholders, executives, and employees who were ready to make trouble. Externally, it was Wen Lang who provoked Yang Yuxuan. I didn't expect Yang's company to grow so fast. Wen Lang couldn't help but feel annoyed when he was defeated again. Yang Yuxuan had robbed him of several important projects recently. If they were robbed by her again, Wen's company might shrink greatly. If the capital chain couldn't keep up, he could only give up some things. When Ran had just learned to manage the company and couldn't deal with these problems for the time being. Looking at Wen Lang's sad face, he didn't know what to do. They didn't know that there were many rumors about them in the school now. And Meng Shi was being ridiculed and excluded. It was An Yuan who received the news and told Wen Ran about it. Wen Ran didn't have time at this time, so he could only ask An Yuan to help. Wen Lang had offended many people. In the 2 years when he fought with Yang Yuxuan, Wen's company shrank greatly and reduced almost half of its scale. If Wen's company didn't have a foundation and couldn't be destroyed in a short time, Yang Yuxuan might not stop. She felt that it was enough for now. She could let Yang's company digest it first and then deal with Wen's company when it was strong. She was finally able to vent the anger that had been bottled up in her heart. In the college entrance examination of the second year, Wen Ran's score was not the best. In order to study in Wen's company, he applied for a school in the city. Because of various things, Meng Shi's score dropped a lot. He also applied for a school in the city. Even if she could apply for other schools, she couldn't be separated from Wen Ran. The top scorer of this year was Zhang Xingyue. She kept the first place that Tanggua moved out. On the day of her exam, Tanggua even came back to visit her. Of course, Tanggua also met Meng Shi. Meng Shi suddenly wanted to say something, but was ignored by Tanggua. When Meng Shi heard the ridicule of the people around him, he became angry from embarrassment and decided not to talk to Tanggua anymore. Jiang Juxiang asked Meng Shi many times why Tanggua didn't go to a restaurant for dinner. Meng Shi didn't know what to say. Tang Tailin was annoyed by the questions. He had a big fight with Jiang Juxiang and moved from his home to a hotel. Later, Jiang Juxiang came to the school gate and squatted by Zhang Xingyue. She pulled Zhang Xingyue with tears and snot, wanting to see Tanggua. Seeing this, Zhang Xingyue told him everything that had happened before. Jiang Juxiang let go of Zhang Xingyue's hand and turned to leave. She didn't disturb Meng Shi and Zhang Xingyue anymore. Tanggua later heard from the system that Jiang Juxiang went to a restaurant to find Tang Tailin and slapped him. Tang Tailin didn't fight back and let Jiang Juxiang scold him. From childhood to adulthood, Jiang Juxiang scolded Tang Tailin for being insensible and disobedient at most. It was the first time that she scolded him for being shameless. Tang Tailin was indifferent. After Jiang Juxiang finished scolding him, Tang Tailin said, "Mom, you scolded me for being insensible, for being shameless, and for driving your granddaughter away. But are you really not wrong at all?" Chapter 46:18. If you hadn't threatened me to go on a blind date by jumping off a building, would I have gotten married? If I hadn't gotten married, would I be here today? I told you before that I have someone I like. It's a man. You thought I was sick and insisted on getting married. You know that I don't like women and I don't want to have children with them. If I hadn't promised you, none of this would have happened. Jiang Juxiang was scolded with tears in her eyes, but she couldn't say a word. She didn't know whether she thought she was wrong or she thought she was good for Tang Tailin. Now you don't have a grandson, and your granddaughter doesn't recognize you or me. I can't be with the person I like. Are you satisfied? After a long time, Jiang Juxiang said, "You have grown up. I can't control you. You have different ideas. I can't control you." Tang Tailin watched Jiang Juxiang leave. The next day he received a call from his sister. "Brother, why did Mom come to my place? You know there are so many people here. It's not enough to live here. Mom cried as soon as she came here. People who didn't know would think I did something wrong. I don't know who made her angry. Brother, I'm very busy. Can you take Mom back when you are free?" Before Tang Tailin answered, Jiang Juxiang's voice sounded. She said she would stay for a while and leave in the afternoon. Tang Tailin couldn't bear it. He went to take Jiang Juxiang back. A few days later, Jiang Juxiang went back to the countryside. She left Tang Tailin with the words that she would leave him alone in the future. Tang Tailin should be happy to get this answer. But he didn't know why he couldn't be happy. Wen Lang hadn't come to him for a long time. He heard that Wen Lang's company was in trouble. After the last incident, Wen Lang said angrily that it wasn't over. He wanted to teach Yang Yuxuan a lesson. At that time, he knew that Yang Yuxuan had opened a company and became the boss. It was not worse than Wen's company. At that time, he was also a little angry. He hoped that Wen Lang could teach Yang Yuxuan a lesson. Tang Guo was so ignorant. It must be Yang Yuxuan who taught her. Now it had been a long time. Wen Lang didn't get any result. Even the call between them became less and less. It was like every time they separated, they automatically stopped contacting each other. Tang Tailin suddenly felt that at this point, he should take the initiative to see how Wen Lang was doing. This was the first time he had gone to Wen Lang's company to meet him after graduating from university. It was a very big and unfamiliar place. Tang Tailin had been looking forward to it, but when he saw Wen Lang walk out with a woman, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He didn't know what to say. He wanted to turn around and leave, but he couldn't move his feet. He saw Wen Lang politely saying something to the woman and walking towards him. "Miss Chin and I are partners." Wen Lang took the initiative to speak. "We might get married, just married. Nothing else will happen." Wen Lang observed Tang Tailin. "I've told Miss Chin about you. She knows and won't mind." Tang Tailin was silent, but he minded it a lot. The Yang family cannot be underestimated. I have suffered many losses in the hands of your ex-wife. I have underestimated her. Tang Tailin became even more silent. Was Yang Yuxuan that powerful? So, was he and his mother in the wrong? He had deceived a person who should have been shining brightly. Our partnership will be dissolved in the future. Tailin, I'll have to trouble you during this period. Tang Tailin finally asked, "How long?" "I don't know," Wen Lang replied. "Maybe on the day we defeat the Yang family." "What if we can't defeat them?" The peak that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.